Yeah.
Yeah, this is perfect.
Yes, ma'am, we are good to go.
Yeah, if you can show that on the screen.
Pin my buddy.
When I speak, I'm coming on the screen. So, yes.
Now you speak, ma'am.
Yeah, this is better. Yes. When are we starting?
Oh, can you hear me now? We'll just introduce you. So 5 minutes?
Sure.
Yeah. Thanks so much for waiting.
Good afternoon, everyone. A warm welcome to you all to the Women in Engineering session. I, Arpita Kumar, will be the host for today's session, along with my colleague, Amok B. So I welcome you all, each and every one of you, to this session. So I now request Sujata ma'am to please give a small introduction of the Women in Engineering session that's happening from past few years in COMSNETS.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome, Niveda. So happy to have you here. So the WIA track of COMSNET actually happened, if I remember, this is the 4th edition of it. We started in, say, 2020, 21, 22, 23. So this is basically the 4th edition. COMSNETs thought, let's have an exclusive track for women so that we encourage a lot of women researchers, women participants, and then try to understand the problems and also try to see how our women leaders have grown. So this is with that intention it was being started. We used to have technical theme for every year, and this year we have chosen a very interesting theme: women in business secrets for success. This is a very interesting domain for women because to manage both their personal life as well as a career, it's very nice that they become entrepreneurs. So with that in mind, this was being chosen. We have two eminent keynote speakers. One is Niveda. She is the CEO and founder of TrashCon. She is the first keynote speaker, followed by Dr. Geeta Manjunath. She is the founder of Niramai Analytics. You will know more about them as we progress, followed by a panel discussion. So this is just an overview. Thank you so much, and over to Arpita.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, a small introduction about our first keynote speaker, Niveda RM. So, Niveda RM is the co founder of TrashCon, and she's a big supporter of Cleaner Tomorrow and has invented the world's first completely automated mixed municipal waste segregation unit and recycling technologies. Her invention has been recognized globally by the World Bank, Red Cross, UNDP, and Israel Embassy, and has received several coveted awards nationally as well and internationally. Her innovation has been recommended by the World Bank to several countries, including Maldives and other developing countries. Her initiative has been applauded by the Honorable Deputy Secretary General, United Nations, Ms. Amina J. Mohammed at Climate Change Summit session, where Niveda presented her innovation. Her initiative has also been applauded by the Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi, on national television. Some of the prestigious awards include the ESG Global Award, Cisco Global Problem Solver Award, Scotch Award 2018, Best Women Startup of the Year Award by CII 2018, Top 30 Startups by Economic Times, Top 100 Innovations by Karnataka Government, to name a few. The invention has been recognized and published across 100 plus media publications globally, notably in India, US, and Germany. It is now successfully implemented across 5 states in India with customers like Unilever, ONGC, PD Light, Capital Land, municipalities, and even village panchayats. Her enterprise, Trashcon Labs Private Limited, has Shell, Cisco, and several corporate giants as partners. Ms. Niveda is a regular figure in various national and international waste management conferences where she is invited as a speaker. She is also a renowned TEDx speaker. She began TrashCon at the humble age of 21 and is currently impacting 1 million lives every day. She is on a mission to ensure that waste is history soon so that our kids and future generations can enjoy the earth as we do. A warm welcome to the session, ma'am. It's really nice to know you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for the humble introduction. And I'm really sorry that I'm not able to be there in person due to a commitment at the last moment. But what I would like to talk to you today is a journey of what was considered impossible by some of the most eminent researchers and scientists, and what I myself considered was impossible. But as you can hear, all of what we have achieved as a part of TrashCon, we have seen some success in solving the impossible. So to begin with, I'm sure many of you are from Bangalore, and I think most of you are from India. You know, this is the kind of streets that are there, even for the program that you have come for. I'm sure each one of you have seen the streets filled like this, is it not? I can see some nods there. Well, when I was doing my engineering and I saw this, uh, everybody was having a blame game. Government is not doing their work. People are not doing their work. My neighbor is dropping the waste, and I'm doing everything right. But there was no solution for the waste on the streets. So, with a group of friends, like many of you might have also tried, we tried to clear up this stretch of land near my college, and it became clean, and everybody was happy. We came in the local newspaper as well, and I was very satisfied, as if I've done something great. But to my horror, in just a week after that, the waste reappeared. So that's when I started thinking, why is this? That means what I have done is just a cosmetic change. There is no real solution to this problem. So going a little deeper, I went and met the chief engineer of BBMP in that particular area. And he said, out of concern, a young student being proactive. So he just said, people are not segregating their waste. So that is why this is happening. And until then, segregation for me was a very new concept. I'm talking about way back in 2016, 2017, when Swachh Bharat mission has just started. So that's when he said, why this waste is on the street is because this plastic bag that you're seeing, it has food in it, it has diaper, it has sanitary napkin, it has dead rats, and literally anything that you can possibly imagine. So when everything is mixed, you can't create value, right? And that is why it is dumped into the landfills. But because there is no land left in the landfills in most of our cities, including Bangalore, where we are all sitting, it has to get, and it ends up getting dumped in front of our streets and burning overnight. So he said, this is what is happening. And the main reason is people are not segregating their waste. So I said, oh, that's so simple. People have to segregate their waste, and that's all. So I went about going door to door and telling, why don't you segregate waste? And to be very frank, including my own family, I saw very little change. But during this process, as I was in my final year, and all of you can relate to this as researchers and scientists and engineers out there, you want to do something, and if you have a good support system, if you can go to the next slide, I ended up creating a small prototype. If you can just move to the next slide, please. If you can see the screen, somebody from the back end, could you please help change the screen, please? Yes, so this is how small it was. It was hardly as much as your table, and it was hardly doing 1 kg per hour. And that also it was not doing. The idea was, I'll build a machine that can segregate what is on the streets in Bangalore and segregate it into degradable fraction, non-degradable fraction, so that it can be recycled and it does not end up going into the landfill. So this was a 1 kg prototype that we made, and this was hardly doing anything. In fact, it was not working at all. Wet degradables was falling in non-degradables, and vice versa. It was hopeless, basically. But while I was finishing my graduation and I was one of the rank holders, I had a great placement in hand. I had great CAT and SAT scores as well. I had everything set that a student could possibly imagine. But then I had another thing to choose. If you can go to the next slide, please. This. You see, what happened during this process of building this prototype, I'm sure as researchers, all of you can relate to this when you go on ground and see the reality. I started going to the places where waste was being dumped, landfills primarily. And I was seeing kids with bare hands touching waste, men and women having an average lifespan of 40 years. Literally every kind of possible pollution, of course, that is definitely there. But the worst thing that affected me was kids are born with respiratory cancer near landfills in our Bangalore. This is there in the reports, you can see. So that's when it hit me that the problem that I was trying to solve is already beyond recovery, and the problem needs to be solved now. But I'm sure all of you can understand that and you can relate to, I come from a middle class background. We had no backing. We had no support system. I had an idea. I had a potential thought process of a solution. But of course, creating a business out of innovation is something that in India we don't think twice. We just consider it impossible. So I also thought, okay, the problem is very grave. It is really affecting me, but I'll do it once I save up some money and get some earnings, and then I'll start doing it. But that's when I went and told this to my mother, and my mother, she's a teacher, and she said, somebody has to solve this problem. If not you, who? And that's when I thought, let me give this a try. And I chose to leave everything and start solving what was considered impossible. So in this respect, I went and met many scientists. I went and met many experts, and they all said, Niveda, you are a fool to try and solve this problem. You have done a prototype. You have gotten good awards and credentials for it. You have gotten place. Now just go in the safer path. But something in me told, if not I, who? And I'm sure many of you can relate to this. Many of you may be having innovations that are possibly going to solve a problem, but you may be thinking somebody else can come and solve it. I have done my bit. But here is where I took another choice to try and solve it. So if you go to the next slide, you will see what my next few months look like. Well, it was not at all a happy journey. I'll be frank with you. I spent days and nights going into the dump sites. I used to tell my parents that I'm going to the office while I used to go to the dump sites, because let's face it, if we are trying to do or scale an innovation from lab scale to an industrial scale, it cannot happen in air-conditioned laboratories. We need to go to the dump sites and actually work in waste with our own hands. That's when I'm going to understand how can I possibly sort the waste. That's when I'm going to understand who is the person who is going to operate the unit. That's when I'm going to understand all the nitty-gritties in it. So this is how my next few months, days, months, and years look like. This was my entire time, and I was basically going there, putting in waste into the machine every day. It slap me on the face, because every time I used to think that, okay, this is how it is going to work, it used to be a totally different outcome. You can understand and appreciate that waste is very dynamic. See your own dustbin. Every day, the composition of what is going into your dustbin changes, right? The moisture content, the composition, the amount of organic and inorganic materials. So, how do you design a system that can take any kind of input and give out consistent outputs? That was the challenge that we were trying to solve. Well, let's go to the next slide. So, after a few months of shooting in the dark, going to industries, trying to build a machine, going to fabricators, begging them, using up all my mom's savings. She had only 2 lakh in savings, but for some reason she believed that I can change the world. I built this slightly bigger prototype, which was trying to, in a way, solve a problem. I mean, I was finding some promising results at a very small scale. Now this was at 50 kgs an hour, but I was facing much bigger issues. You see, waste is, again, like I told you, it's dynamic. So I used to find clogging. I know you don't even want to see the slide. It's that bad. But I was facing issues like clogging that used to happen at various points. 50 kgs goes in, 45 kg used to get clogged. Only 5 kg used to come out. And I was trying time and again to solve this. I don't want to go into the technicalities. Can we go to the next slide? And well, this is again me continuing to try and solve. Can we go to the next slide? And then we built, finally, after many months, we built a machine. You can see it looks slightly bigger than what I had shown you earlier, the prototypes. So this was able to do, again, 50 kgs an hour, but it was giving an efficiency of around 60%, 70% or so. And I was very happy that I finally could do something which people considered was impossible. This was almost 8-9 months into this work, and that's when I called all the people who told me that it is not possible, and I said, come, I'll show you what I have done. And they came, and on the day I was very excited, and I was trying to showcase the solution. And what happened was, they were all standing, and we put waste inside, and there was something inside that went in, which caused the machine to completely break down. The motor literally jumped out and fell. So this happened. And the reason was, there was a boulder in the input, which was intentionally or unintentionally put by some waste pickers there. And that is when I felt that I am actually a fool to have believed in myself and not to have understood what others were telling. It was really difficult. I have not seen all the possibilities. You know, as researchers and scientists, how much ever you think there is going to be something that is beyond your control. So this is when I had exhausted all my fundings, and I decided to call it off. I said, that's it. I don't think I can do any more. This is it. I can't do any more. And I went to my then CA and mentor and said that I want to give up. And this is what happened. If we go to the next slide. So this CA and mentor who I had, I went and told him that I want to give up. And he said, why are you giving up? You've come so far. It's a huge opportunity. You're solving a problem that can impact 1 billion lives. Why are you doing this? And then I said, see, to be very frank, lip service to sab dete hai. Why don't you come on ground and actually see the problem that I'm trying to solve? So he comes on ground, and in times to come, he's also somebody who has a very good problem solving skills. Well, he's not just a CA, he's also a gold medalist electronics engineer. He comes on ground, he starts seeing the problems that I'm facing. Together, it becomes 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 3 months. And then he chooses to leave his office and join me in the dump sites, because he could see the gravity of the problem that I'm trying to solve. And that's how I got my co-founder. Over the next few months, he puts in all his earnings, all his savings into this impossible venture that he had already seen has failed. I'm showing you that during my entire journey, I found such inspiration. People who came out of their comfort zone time and again. He had one of the biggest firms, CA firms, and I was one of his clients. And he chose to leave his air-conditioned room, his plush office, to join me in the dump site. So that gave me hope that maybe there is some hope, and I continued. We can go to the next slide to see what happened. So yes, so that was 2 years of us working finally, and we built a machine. This was quite fast. The scrolling. I wanted to give a suspense and show you that yes, we built it. You'll be happy to know that we did the impossible. We did build a machine that could do 200 kgs an hour, and it was segregating waste to an efficiency of over 80%. And we were very happy. We had shipped it to our first customer. We were so happy that there was a corporate customer who was interested, and one of the largest corporate customers, if you could imagine, who had purchased the machine. And we had told him that it's not ready yet, and they still wanted to give it a shot. And we were very happy that somebody believed in us. But if you can go to the next slide, it didn't stop. You see, 2 years, 3 years of working hard, and still failures continued to keep coming. I know it might be sounding like, what a failure story. Why is she talking to us? Wasn't it supposed to be inspiring? But this is what happened. The biggest corporate customer, the first 2.5 years of working in waste, and when we went there and installed the machine, it was working beautifully. But due to some defect that had come from one of the gearboxes of a vendor, again, see, we have not gone through the phases of procurement. We had only 3 people or 4 people working with us. So we had believed in this particular vendor, and it had failed miserably. The gearbox had failed miserably for the load that was coming in. It broke. It was a terrible time. I remember crying so much that I said that this is heights. I mean, nobody could have seen something worse than this. And I was even feeling guilty that had other people who had joined me in this mission, leaving their jobs, leaving everything that they have to join me in this mission. But then something, I don't know, I mean, you can call me crazy, you can call that I was blessed, I don't know what, but something in us the customer told us, they gave us a second chance, and they said, try it out again. And that's when we went back, started working on it again, and spent 1 year doing work on the machine as if the customer will do. And this is a very necessary step when you're moving from an innovation to a commercial business, is before you launch it, you try it for an exhaustive amount of time, troubleshoot it, do all kinds of possible things that can go wrong, and only then launch it. So that's when, if you go to the next slide, this is what we tried to do. And if you go to the next slide. So I wanted to tell you one more thing. While the first idea, so this 1 year of process that we took up, that we will try to run the machine so that there are no surprises at the customer location. There was one thought process that I had. You see, I was segregating the waste into degradables and non-degradables. Now, degradables are all your kitchen waste, food waste, canteen waste, anything that can degrade. While the non-degradable waste, as you can imagine, is mostly plastics. But while we were doing these prototypes for over 2 years, we realized that the plastics that we were getting during these trials were plastics that had no value. I'm talking about a plastic called multi-layered plastic. So you see your chips, bingo, kurkure covers with a layer of aluminium sticking onto it. These are called multi-layered plastics. They are non-recyclable plastics. They have a number 7 behind it. But unfortunately, 75% of the plastics that you and I generate out of our homes are multi-layered plastics. These cannot be recycled. So they don't have a place to go. That's why the plastics that you see mostly on the streets are these food packaging and other packaging materials. You don't see a PET bottle or a shampoo bottle because these are high value plastics. So that means after all of this segregation that I was trying to do with a machine, the output that we were possibly going to get in the non-degradable section was material that nobody wanted, not even the waste picker. That's when I realized this problem, if it has to be solved, there needs to be a solution for that as well. So imagine this, you have failed miserably in solving a solution. You're on your way to possibly your last chance of proving it to your customer and to the industry and to the world. But at the same time, look at the audacity, I'm already thinking, what will happen if it actually works and there is dry waste and I'm again creating another problem. There is going to be 30-40% of the problem that will be unsolved. So with already minimum resources, we again deploy a small team of 1 or 2 people to start working on what can happen with these plastics. So that's how we were. Call us, you can imagine whatever you can, but even when I think about us that time, I just think we were people who were blind with just one mission, that is to solve the problem. And that's all I can justify to showcase what we were doing back then. If you go to the next slide. So this is how it was. Our first prototype of trying to make something with the plastic. So the idea was to convert it into a product that people could possibly want. And this was our first setup. Can we go to the next slide? And this is our product that we built after a few months. It was literally looking like a roasted roti, the product that came out. It was literally shattering me that, it was failing from all angles. I tried this, it failed. I tried that, it failed. But again, there was hope. Something was coming out. Can we go to the next slide? So basically, what I'm trying to tell you is it was 3 years of very long, sad story. And I'll tell you, there were millions of times that I wanted to give up. I'll be frankly telling you this, and I'm sure as researchers, you can relate with me during your extensive, long years of R&D. But when you're on your own, when you're in the dump site, when you're putting your own money, it's a different story. And when you have people to feed, we still had 3-4 people who were on our payroll. It was terrible. It was just a nightmare. But I wouldn't be here if it had failed, right? I mean, Ms. Sujatha wouldn't have called me here. So 3 years of long, sad story. But I think they say that when you have the right intentions in your heart, things happen somehow. So that's what happened for us. If you go to the next slide. Ladies and gentlemen, finally, we built what we have currently patented as TrashBot. It is a fully automated segregation system that today takes completely mixed municipal waste out of the streets. Yes, in Bangalore itself, we have 5 plants. It segregates it in degradables and non-degradables at a much higher efficiency of 90%. And not just that, we also recover metals and inerts, and we employ 3 unskilled manpower who are generally drunk most of the times, and they handle it beautifully. That's how foolproof we made the system over the first 3 years. And today, these systems are all over India. We're preventing 500 tons of waste from entering the landfills. We have hardly faced any failure issues. And not just that, we have also exported our technology abroad to Philippines. That's what came out of 3 years, toiling in the dark, literally shooting in the dark. Can we go to the next slide? So I'm just trying to show a comparison here. That's what we have today. This is what we had 3 years back. I had no clue that one day we could possibly be breaking the barriers and making what is considered impossible. Can we go to the next slide? Do you remember that cooker wala photo that I showed you, which was all black and that very bad? This is the recycling system. You remember the plastics that I told you, multi-layered plastics that nobody wanted, that we wanted to convert into something? We built a recycling technology, which again we have multiple patents on, which converts the non-recyclable plastics that we are recovering from our trash bots, as we call our segregation systems, into recycled sheets like plywood. This system does it. This is again something that we have already worked with several large corporates like Unilever, Mondelez, Friesland Campina, that is the largest FMCG company in Philippines. Can we go to the next slide? Showing you what it was a few years ago, just to show the difference. Can we go to the next slide? This is how the boards look like. So basically the mixed waste that was on the streets in Bangalore, which you would have seen coming out of your houses, got converted into recycled sheets after segregation and recycling. And the output that comes out can replace plywood. So yes, we are not only solving the problem of waste, but also solving the problem of cutting of trees. And from that, we made benches, desks, tables, chairs, cupboards, and whatnot. All the photos that you're seeing on the screen, These are real images. In fact, most of the furniture that we use in our office is completely made of this material. It's waterproof, it's termite proof, it's 30% cheaper than plywood, and most importantly, it can be recycled again and again and again. So one design thing, one very big constraint, one big limitation I gave my team was we will not solve a problem and create a problem. So if you are solving a problem, it can't create a problem. So the output product that was coming out, it should not end up going into the landfill. So we made it in a way that it can be taken back and recycled again. So that's what I am mostly proud of. If we can go to the next slide. If you can go to the next slide, can you hear me? Yes. So this is how it looked. Again, showing the failure versus what it is today. Please go to the next slide. I'll be happy to tell you that an Indian technology, I'm sure all of you have faced this. R&D is not very heavy on in India. We businesses in India are mostly traders, trading, and you take something from US and then we try to copy it here. No offense to any of those. They are great. They're advancing our economy, but at the same time, innovation is something that really struggles to prosper in India and to take it from an idea to a commercial scale. But during this process, I just wish to share, I'm sure many of you are aware, there is a lot of opportunities, grants, financial instruments available in the market that help you to possibly create your product with minimum amount of investments. So we were, to be very frank, I was applying in all these competitions just to get funds. But what it helped us get is also credibility. But we are happy to share that we have been covered in almost, we have won several awards. I wouldn't want to be on this page, but what I want to show you is the world is there to support you when you have the right idea. Can we go to the next slide? I'll be also happy to share you that a fully made in India technology is today adopted by the world's corporates, by the world's who's who in the industry. Next slide, please. Today we are in 20 cities, 6 states, 500 tons of waste preventing from going into the landfills. I am also happy to share that we are installing almost 1,100 tons of waste today as we speak per day from entering the landfills. Many of you may be interested. You can please reach out to me through Ms. Sujata. We are setting up what could be Bangalore's largest plans of 100 tons per day. The installation is going on. It's going live in the next 2 months, although we have already 5 smaller plants. We have close to 10 plus patents in various stages of the patent process. And the most beautiful part, which I go to bed satisfactorily, is we are impacting over 2 million lives as we speak today. You can go to the next slide, please. We are also happy that several who's who have talked about us, including the Prime Minister of India. Next slide, please. Why I'm showing you this is what was considered impossible. What was considered impossible by me is something that the world today recognizes as a global solution. But this was the moment which was truly a huge milestone for us. This year, in 2022, I was at Davos World Economic Forum, representing India before prime ministers and presidents of the world in Switzerland in several sessions at the annual Congress. So this was a huge moment for us. Thank you so much. And frankly, I never imagined that this could possibly happen. Thank you so much. You can go to the next slide. Again, we are being covered globally, but the point is, an Indian technology, or India has many problems, but I'm sure there are people like you and me who have the will and the knowledge to possibly try and solve it. All it requires is more of us going ahead, pushing ourselves, coming out of our comfort zones and solving it. And I'm sure India will. We have enough problems to solve, and all we need is people who can solve the problems. That's all I'm trying to say, that the world is there to support you. Can we go to the next slide? Can we go to the next slide? I also wanted to share with you that the most important thing when you're taking your innovation from an idea to a commercial stage is the team that you're building. The first person who joined us, you remember in that place that I showed you where the motor had cracked, the motor had jumped and fallen. The first person who joined us, we had given him the offer letter and he was expected to come to an office, or at least that's what he would have been expecting. He came to a dump site. he had to keep his bag in a place where a dog and a cat had urinated. And Saurabh and I, my co-founder and I, were just betting that he will leave tomorrow. But I want to tell you that he's still with us. He's leading a team of 15 people, 15 to 20 people. He has built these machines. He has patents on his name. That is the kind of team that you need. A team that shares your vision, a team that comes together, works in the toughest of situations to solve the problem. Today, we are over 50 people. We have people with several decades of experience. We have experts in the industry. We are soon going to be 75 in the next 2-3 months. We are on a hiring spree. We are funded well. We have great revenues. In just a matter of 4 years, in just a matter of 2 years of commercialization, we have been valued few hundreds of crores today. But all this apart, this could not have been done without a team. So getting the right team is a critical step when you're taking the leap to commercializing your innovation. Can we go to the next slide, please? But during this entire process, you would have seen that we have had a lot of impossible situations, and you saw all the ingredients that were required, which is having the right partner, having the right team, having the right sort of funds coming in, not giving up, all those points. But what is very important is, what is your dream and why are you doing what you're doing? And for us, it was very clear from day one till now. Every day that I get up and go to bed, I have only one dream, that 20 years down the lane, when I'm telling a story to my daughter saying, Beta, once upon a time there was trash, my daughter should ask me, Mama, what is trash? And this is our vision. And this is what kept us going every single day. And I would like to say that this sort of vision is what you require to take you on your journey from an idea to a commercial stage. So yes, that's where I am, and all I want to leave you with is, I'm sure many of you in the audience are much more talented, skilled, qualified than I am. All I want to leave you with is, if I can do it, why can't you? Thank you so much. Sujata ma'am, can we open the FAQs, questions that the audience can ask? Sorry.
Okay, the quorum is now open for Q&A. And before that, I'd first like to thank Niveda ma'am for giving such a, inspiring story. It's a lot of things that we had to learn through your entire story, be it teamwork, be it hard work. It was very inspiring to listen to each and every instance of your life when building TrashCon. So I now open the quorum for Q&A.
Hi. So this is very interesting and very motivating talk, and I would say that this has been my dream also from the beginning, like like segregate the waste. So like on a different thread, I know that there are certain companies like corporates who does these sort of things, right? These waste segregation, like there are like multinational, even multi-city, their presence is. So how can you scale your system to like do they do the exact same job that you do, or is there anything something that some segregation you can't do? That was my first question. Second question is, you said that some 80% waste could be segregated, rest could not be. So then what could you do for those 20% sort of waste? Okay, thanks.
Sure. Thank you so much. So I wanted to tell you that the problem that we were trying to solve, so there are many segregators in the market, and I didn't put up that slide because this was more of a journey that I was trying to share. So there's something called trommels, which are basically rotary sieves. There are optical sorters. There are vibratory screens. There is ballistic separators. There are all kinds of these systems out in the market. But more in India or any other developing country or the entire Southeast Asia, Africa, this region I'm talking about, our process of solid waste management was that we will dump the waste in the landfill, let the waste degrade over a period of time, and the wet waste or the degradables would have become powder-like, right, when it degrades over a period of time, while the plastics and the other inert materials retain the size. So once they reach that stage is when they believe to apply these systems like vibratory screens or sawmills or any other system, and basically all the degradables will get sifted out, and the inerts or the plastics will remain on the top. While it had its own disadvantages, that is the solid waste management practice that was being followed in India. So when we had thought of this idea, fresh mixed waste segregation, that is waste that has over 80% moisture content, like dripping with moisture, was not heard of. Like nobody wanted to solve it. The only way that fresh mixed waste was being solved was they will dump it for a period of time, like say a year or two, get it to a stage where the degradables had gotten composted. Everything will become a much manageable situation back then. But when you do this process, you're using up so much of land. You can imagine Bangalore generates 5,000 tons of waste. Where is the land to keep so much of waste? It takes 3 months for one wet waste to degrade. I'm sure many of you will be composting in your house. You'll know how long it takes. During this process, leachate comes out and percolates into the groundwater. Leachate is a black thick liquid. I'm sure you know because you're interested in this field. And of course, it starts burning in summer and whatnot. So we were trying to build a system that can take the waste instantaneously. So it goes from my house in the auto that picks it up, goes to something called a transfer station where it is dumped into a bigger truck. In the transfer station is where we are placed in a bigger city like Bangalore. In a smaller city like imagine a Tumkur or a Mysore, it is at the dump site itself. So we were trying to build a system for fresh mixed waste, which is unheard of. And that is how we are very different. And that is the reason why many of these largest corporates are partnering with us to solve the problem. Because otherwise, if the problem was already there, it should have been solved by now. So that was a big difference. And also one very important thing, when we are making a system, what missed out is the cost. So it's not that there is no segregation system. Europe has it. US has it. They have very large systems. I have visited most of these plants as well in Spain, in Switzerland, in the Middle East, and whatnot. But these plants, one segregation system of 300 tons a day, just to give you an understanding, is across 3 acres of land. It costs millions of dollars in capex and costs millions of dollars to operate it. $100 million was the amount that they gave per year to operate that plant. Now, can such a system be able to be put in India? Can we afford that in terms of the capex or the footprint or the opex? No. So what we have built, just to give you a comparison, 2 to 3 acres, ours sits in 2,000 square feet of footprint. It's like not even comparable. 2 to 3 acres, 2,000 square feet. The amount of operating cost per ton of handling our machine is 60 rupees. It's less than €1. When I pitched it to most of the European companies, that jaws dropped. I was just telling Sujata, ma'am, I'm not there now in person with you because I'm going to the Middle East to be working in Dubai, Sharjah, and Abu Dhabi and pitching to their municipalities. So what I'm trying to say is we built it at a very low cost of capex and opex, and that's what is required when you want to create a scalable innovation. So that's what set us apart in a very large way. Now, coming to the what do you call the second question that you had? Can you just repeat what was the second question that you had?
1 minute.
Sorry,
I'm sorry, I'm so
some
sorry. I got carried away.
80% waste got segregated.
Correct.
but
Sorry.
waste
I was just
20%.
saying that we commit on 85% segregation so far, but with our latest systems, we have been able to do up to 95%. But I'll be frank with you, I don't think 100% is possible because of the kind of waste we are looking at. But at TrashCon, we have been able to achieve above 95%, but we commit 85%. Why 85%? Again, the question that you asked, what happens to the remaining? Now, when the degradable waste comes out at an 85% efficiency, that means in 100 kgs of wet waste, I'll have around 5 to 10 kgs of plastics or contamination. Now, this is okay for a biogas or a composting solution that we are working on. So, composting solutions don't give me 100% because that's not possible anyways. Biogas is not telling give me 100%. They'll say 85, 90, or 95. So, we are able to match the end output usage. And what happens to the remaining 5% is once the usage is done, be it in a biogas or be it in a composting, it can be skimmed or removed, and it is again sent back to recycling. So this 10% is not costing anybody much. It is not going back to the landfills. It is again getting removed in the next process of recycling and being put to use. Again, like I told you, one more thing is, as a researcher, we always want to do 100%. We always want to do perfection. We always want to reach perfection. And that was a problem for us. We were always trying to get 100%. But then when we went to the market and asked, what do you want? They only wanted 85%. So I think that's a big difference when you are a researcher or an innovator. And today we are selling machines rated 9 to 95% also, but I'm pretty sure I don't think we can achieve 100% at least in next 1 or 2 years. So, but we are hoping for that. We are hoping for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have one more question, ma'am.
Actually, ma'am, I don't have a question. First thing is that you and your co-founders both are fighters, so kudos to that. And then through your efforts, you are not just trying to address the waste management issue, but you are also restoring the self-respect of those waste collectors who come to your houses every day in the morning and segregate the waste by their bare hands. So thank you for your service.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Means a lot. Thank you so much.
Hello, ma'am. I have just one question. Again, your invention has been an inspiration to all of us. So, one question is, we are talking about trash on the landfills, but let me tell you, we have trash on the ocean fills also. So, do you have anything to be done with that?
Yes, so that's a very good question because we have been focusing on something called municipal solid waste, which is the waste that is today coming out of our household shops, streets. And you're right, it goes either to the landfills or to our streets also. We should consider that it is coming mostly on our streets, at least in our cities. Then it finds its way through our drains and whatever the whatever drains it gets clogged and then it goes on to the waterways. And I still think insufficient segregation is the reason to that, and not plastics itself as a problem. Of course, plastics is a problem, but the way we dispose it is a major problem. Is what I think. Now we are currently doing work with some entities related to World Bank on ocean waste because our system can handle over 80% moisture content. We believe or think that even the marine waste can be segregated, and only after it can be segregated can it be recycled. But it is still underway. There is very less harnessing going on in India. There is a lot of activity going on in other parts of the world, but of course it's still underway. We have not been able to crack it yet, but we are partnering. We have partnered with a couple of companies that are already collecting plastics and the waste from oceans, rivers in other countries. We are still exploring whether our technology can be used to it. But again, just to leave you with the thing, there is a huge scope even in that part of the solution to segregate and recover the plastics.
Thank you, ma'am. Congratulations and all the best.
Thank you so much. Means a lot.
Thank you, ma'am. I think we are finished with all the questions. So thank you so much for joining us in your busy schedule. It was really inspiring to have you in the session.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye.
I now welcome Geeta ma'am. She shortly joined us to the session. A warm welcome to you to the Women in Engineering session of COMSNETS. So she's our next keynote speaker. So to introduce her, Dr. Geeta Manjunath is the founder, CEO, and CTO of Niramai Health Analytics and has led the company to develop a breakthrough AI solution for detecting early-stage breast cancer in a non-invasive, radiation-free manner. Geeta holds a PhD from IISc and a management education from Kellogg's, Chicago. She comes with over 25 years of experience in IT innovation. She has proposed and led multiple AI projects at Xerox Research and Hewlett Packard in India. Before starting Niramai, Geeta was a lab director for data analytics research at Xerox India. Geeta has received many international and national recognition for her innovations and entrepreneurial work, including CSI Gold Medal, Birac, Weiner Award 2018, and is also on the Forbes list of Top 20 Self-Made Women 2020. She was recently awarded the Accenture Wahini Innovator of the Year Award from Economic Times and Women Entrepreneur of the Year 2020 by Biospectrum India. Geeta is also an inventor of 16 US patents and more pending grant. A warm welcome to the session, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So, great to see a lot of energy here, and thank you, Sujata ma'am, for inviting me. And looks like I came on time to hear the wonderful story of the previous entrepreneur. Trash is such an important thing to manage. So, Good afternoon, everyone, again. And I think I can just stand here. So, as was introduced, yes, we are trying to look at AI and how AI can help in saving lives from cancer. That's the theme. And let's just quickly make sure that all of us are on the same page when we say AI. I'm sure all of you know what is artificial intelligence. It is about database decision making, using data, historic data, to make decisions, right? When I say AI, there are these terms floating around: machine learning, deep learning, reinforcement learning, and so on. So all of them are subclasses, like in this form, right? Subsets of AI, right? So AI is a broad term that we are using here. Now, when we look at how AI can help cancer care, which is like a very, very broad topic, there's several ways this can help, right? There's several applications. So, as a person who's been in AI for almost like more than 10, 15 years, I want to look at applications of AI in cancer care in two main categories. One, um, which is more trying to help in operational efficiency, improving the operational efficiency, like reducing the waiting time at the diagnostic lab, or trying to make sure your report comes in on time, and so on and so forth, which is kind of very similar to applications in other areas, AI applications in other areas. It doesn't matter if you get the report 1 minute later or 2 minutes later, right? But it's not so critical. Now, when you think about applications in AI and healthcare, right? Basically, the clinical decision support applications, where even a small mistake can actually mean somebody not detected when they have cancer. Like we were talking about 85% and 100%. Sorry, here there is no margin for error, right? Would you go and stand in front of a machine which says I have 85% accuracy? No, right? So the requirement in this particular area is so high in terms of accuracy. And this is the clinical decision support. Of course, the doctor may be there, the doctor will be there, but when the tool is suggesting something, people tend to trust the tool and start depending on the tool, and it better start behaving. Like if I was using Google Map, it said I can reach in whatever number of minutes, and I'm depending on it to tell Sujata ma'am that I'm not going to come on soon, right? So that kind of dependency you start developing, right, on a tool when you start using it. So that's where it is. And so there are several applications even in clinical decision support. You can use an AI tool to decide what treatment to do, or probability that if I use treatment one, that there is success versus treatment two, and so on and so forth. So that is one set of applications. But the one which I'm going to talk about today is about use of AI on medical images. And what are medical images? So these are some of the medical images you would have seen in one form or the other, right? X-ray, and thanks to COVID, a lot of people saw chest X-ray images coming in, and so on, the MRI, and even pathology samples. Nowadays tissue samples are sent out. These are all medical images, and there are lots of nice machines in the hospital and diagnostic centers which are trying to take these images. Just for you to think through it, like, because I think all of us, all of you are engineers like me, right? Why do we need these medical images? Just if you reflect on it, if a person stands in front of you and you want to know whether there's cancer or not, the best way is to take out the tissue sample and put it under the microscope. But where do I pick the tissue sample from? Is there a need to actually keep poking people to pick up the tissue? And that is what medical image helps you determine. That is, first it'll tell you whether there is any problem at all in the person. Next, if there is a problem, where is the problem? And then, of course, the tissue test is the final, right? So medical images and medical imaging in general help you to look into the body without poking into the body, right? So that's the most important part. And in the form of computer aided detection, right? Okay, so it already went to the next slide. So where we are talking about AI in radiology. And the way today medical images are interpreted are through radiologists who are trained to just look at patterns of abnormality and normality, and then say whether there's an abnormality and where it is. Now, AI in radiology is the best marriage between technology and healthcare and the need, because AI, as you know, has been seen to do well in images and videos where the bare eye actually has limitations, because we have huge amount of computing power. The video analysis and image analysis can be really good. And it has been proven to improve productivity, reducing misdiagnosis and missed diagnosis, and so on and so forth. So that's sort of the broad part. But the one which excites me the most is how AI can be used to bridge the gap between the haves and the have-nots, right? Um, you can think about, in a big hospital, maybe like in Bangalore, a big hospital, there are lots of expert doctors available, and you can always go in and do the diagnosis, get the help of the expert doctors. But far away, it was proven again in the COVID time, right? How the infrastructure in rural areas is so low that you need machines to start acting like robo doctors or helping the healthcare workers get those expertise which is missing in the rural areas. So when you use AI in rural areas, like some pictures you see there, you can actually identify people who need to be brought to a hospital for further diagnosis with automated tools. Whereas the same thing, when you're actually using it in an urban setting, it will help the doctor to be more productive, able to scale up and treat many more patients at the right time, right? So this is the most interesting aspect of it, and which drove me also to this problem of breast cancer. I'll take a detour here and then tell you a small story, given this is supposed to be an inspiration story. And I hope you will kind of relate to what I went through, right? As was introduced, I was head of AI, lab director for Xerox Research, heading AI research. And I had like wonderful set of team members, and me being a techie as well, trying to innovate for the world, different type of applications in transportation, smart cities, going around the world because it is a multinational company, and trying to develop things, cool stuff for US, Europe, and those kind of markets. Then suddenly, one of my cousin sisters got detected with breast cancer. She was 42 years of age, and within a year, she passed away. She was such a close friend, and I have never heard about anybody getting breast cancer so close to me, right? Of course, I read about it in news and so on and so forth. When it happened to a person who's almost like my friend, buddy, sister, and we used to spend like summers together, and so on, it just hit me, and I saw how the whole family kind of disintegrated literally. She had a small son, and whose education he had to do in some other's house. It was really, it's very painful to see that. And as it would have within 6 months, please don't touch the laptop. So within 6 months, another of my relative also got detected with breast cancer, and she was 38 years old, and she also did not survive beyond 1 year. These two episodes just got me thinking, what is the use of using technology, trying to make Disney World look more fashionable, and trying to save some customer buy a product better, and so on. I was doing that a lot, right? There is this problem, and I looked at the statistics. It's problem taking away 1 lakh women, 96,000 to be exact, every year in India alone. More than half a million women around the world dying every year. And I asked the doctors, they said the only reason why we are losing so many people is because of late stage detection. If it's a stage 1 detection, there is 95% chances of survival. A stage 3 or stage 4 detection, 10% chance of survival. 10%. Completely the other side. And that is the problem why we are losing so many women. Nobody needs to die of breast cancer. It is one of the most curable of all the diseases. But still, we are losing so many women only because of late detection. Also, detection in stage 1 is much, much cost effective in treatment. Like if it is, let's say, X rupees for stage 1 detection, it is 5x or 10x for stage 3 detection. With chemotherapy, radiation, and so on, and the quality of life after the surgery also is not so great. So this is the problem. Then I decided that needs to be solved, and I created a small project, like an exploratory project for like 6 months. I was working on it. And then I said, I'm going to do this. I quit my job and started this company now, close to 6 years now. What is the problem? The problem really is in three main buckets. Mammography, which is the default standard for breast cancer, where it is basically X-ray of the breast. First of all, people don't want to use the word breast. Why? It's part of the body. Just like you say leg, when feel free. This is an organ which can take away life. Feel free to use the word. It is not a problem. Okay, first, if those of some of you are feeling uncomfortable. Next, what do you mean by X-ray of the breast? It's basically the breast is pulled in two plates. It's compressed between two plates, and X-rays are passed from top to bottom. It's very, very uncomfortable experience, to say the least, where the person has to disrobe in front of the technician pulls the breast and puts between. That's the second picture you're seeing there. Many women take it first time, and then they basically don't come back, because it's just the experience. Most importantly, a mammogram is not affordable and accessible, just like the previous speaker was saying, for countries like India, Philippines, Malaysia, Indonesia, Africa, of course, many countries there. So machine may cost up to 80 lakhs. And then for a person, it could be, please don't touch my laptop. Yeah. So it can cost anywhere up to 3,500 rupees. And so that's a lot of money for somebody to spend, when everyone, all of us feel that it will not come to me. So that is one of the main issues, affordability and accessibility issue. Then the user experience. The third issue, which is a physics limitation. If you're using X-rays and you're trying to find something is wrong, as we said before, the beam imaging is going to look at some abnormalities in the signal. The way it looks at is if I take an X-ray of my hand, anything that is hard comes out white, like skeleton looks white, right? That's the same principle. You take an X-ray and then say, is there a white spot? But women, many women are different. There are different types of breast, as we call it, like different density of breast. Going towards that side, normal breast itself is have whole white. It is just more fibroglandular tissue and so on and so forth. Almost all women under 45 have the last one, which is dense breast, where you cannot see any differences even if there is a cancer. So under 45 years of age, mammography does not work first. And both my cousin sisters and sister-in-law actually were 38 and 42. They are not alone. There are like 30% of all cancer deaths are happening in this age group. That's a huge number. And so you need a way of, I really don't know why it's running. So you need a way of really trying to reduce, you're letting the cat out. Or can I just keep the laptop here if it's not working? I don't know why it's happened. That's why I kept this thing also here. Anyway. Okay, bear with me. So there are lots of AI that is, people are trying to do. I'm just coming in from the Google office. I had a presentation there. That's why I got delayed. So they have also developed an AI on mammography. They said, can I use AI to figure out? But it's a physics limitation. Like all said and done, these signals are clashing, right? You're trying to find density differences here, and there are dense breast issue. But still, there have been papers which show that there is 9% reduction of false negatives and 5% reduction in false positive. False positive is one where you say it is cancer when there is no cancer. False negative is where you're missing the cancer. Which one is better? We don't want to miss any cancer, right? That's the first thing you want to know, right? Anyway, so that's what both it has helped, which is great. But still, because it's a physics limitation, we came up with a completely new method of detecting breast cancer. What we do is we do not use X-rays, because when you use X-rays, you're also worrying about, is it actually increasing my risk to cancer? Because there are actually papers which show that regular use of mammogram can actually cause cancer. It's crazy. So how can you have a test which will supposed to protect you actually increase the risk to cancer? So always you need to worry about risk versus benefit. And this is not very well told, because that is the only way you can actually detect cancer today. So we thought, can we do differently? So Sujata ma'am wanted me to bring it. So this is the device, which many of you would have seen. This is a thermal sensor, just measuring temperature variations on the chest. Now you're seeing on my face, right? So we use this temperature distribution or temperature measuring instrument, which is an infrared camera, which you would have seen during COVID testing. Whenever you go into a building, these devices are watching whether you have fever or not. It's the same temperature measuring instrument. We use that to say whether there is cancer or not. And the magic is the artificial intelligence that we have built. the algorithm that uses AI. It's just running. You're seeing all my next slides. I really don't know why it's running. Okay. So, so basically, we call this as thermalytics, where the temperature variations on the chest is converted into cancer screening report. A temperature distribution converting into cancer report is what we have developed. So this is a very, very unique piece around the world. Nobody else in this world has actually developed such a product. And this has resulted in 30 granted patents, out of which 11 are granted in the US and 11 in India. So what you see in the center is just a snapshot of a thermal image of the breast when she's not wearing clothes. So what happens is that the lesions which are highly active, because cancer is multiplying at a very large rate, and so there is an increase in temperature. Also, the blood flow to that region is much, much higher. So the patterns around the lesion or the cancer lesion is different compared to other parts of the body. So this gives away the signal, which is what we have modeled to actually generate a report like that, automatically saying here there could be a problem. And now a follow-up diagnostic workup can be done. And with this and a small portable device like this and a smart AI software on the cloud, we've been able to develop this technology, which has now the ability to detect cancers in stage 0 and stage 1 with 5 millimeter cancer. Okay, so this also works on women of all age groups. We found a 17-year-old with cancer with this methodology, unfortunately, and many, many women between 20 and 40 as well are also above 40. Absolutely no radiation. We're just measuring the temperature. So you can use it as many times as possible, still, without any side effects. And the device itself is 1/10 or 1/15 the cost of a mammography machine. And in fact, we are working on a mobile based form factor, which can be 100 the cost of a mammography machine. And because it is automated, for many of the cases, you don't even need a doctor to interpret. Because when you go to a rural areas, you can't wait for a doctor to say yes or no. So this is actually today used without a doctor also. Here's my laptop, this one, right? Okay. The most important part of it is the experience itself, right? So the experience of doing this is very, very privacy aware. The lady goes into the room and I don't know why it's running. No, don't touch it. No, no, I know my slides. I don't have anything. Something else is happening. Yeah. Which timer? You have a timer. Okay. So there is no, basically the person goes into the room and she closes the door and then starts then sits in front of this device. Nobody sees or touches the person. This is completely privacy aware. No one even sees the person. It's what I call as changing room experience. And because of this, lot of women have come forward to actually take the test. She just goes, sits in front of the device, and turns on a rotating stool. That's all. And rest is done by the software. So it's a very, very simple procedure. It's computer aided detection because first we want to find out whether somebody is having any issues or not. 5 views are taken, uploaded into the cloud. First and foremost, we have a analysis to see whether the images were taken properly or not, and then segmentation and extraction of features. And some of you would have heard about explainable AI. That is, it's not sufficient to say, yes, there is a problem. The doctor will say, tell me where, tell me how do I validate that what you're saying is true or not. So we have scores indicating whether it is because of blood vessel activity, whether it was because of tissue activity being more or milk ducts being stuck. So we give those information as well and generate a full 3-page report completely automatically. It is possible. If you focus on one problem for 4 years, 5 years, you can solve it, right? So we were able to solve this very, very well. And it is now being used by hundreds and thousands of people. And so these are some of the scores and automated annotation and so on. So now it's actually used by more than 85,000 women who've gone through and benefited from this test. We have launched it in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, Kenya, Turkey, Greece, and many other places as well. And also in the US, we launched it in Chicago in November, last November, and it's now being used, starting to use in UK, Europe, and US as well. Most important part is it's now available in many hospitals in India, as well as we can do corporate camps. You can just set up, and we were planning to actually enable it for all of you here, but then there were several last minute constraints. So basically we can just set it up here in this corner, and anyone can come in and take the test within 10 to 12 minutes per person. It's just a breast health test, nothing to be worried about. First of all, you have to remove the fear out of it. So that's the central picture we can actually have. And we have buses which actually go to rural areas and do the screening. Thousands of women have benefited, as I said, even in rural areas. And last but not the least, we have private screening at home where people can go in and do the screening. They just come to our website, and if you want to do it for your mom or grandmom or aunt, you can just come to our website and say whether there is, just put your PIN code, and our team will come and do that at home. So these are some of the hospitals where it's available and so on. um, okay, so one of the most important part of a clinical decision support system being developed using AI is the clinical efficacy testing. A systematic clinical study is absolutely important. And the way we can test it is you can say, okay, how does thermolytics behave with respect to mammography? But I already told mammography does not have good accuracy in younger women. So how can you test it? So we said, okay, let's put all the tests that are available today: mammography, breast MRI, ultrasound and biopsy, and the doctor looks at all the report and say whether there is yes or no. And thermolytics with automated AI will say yes or no. It's a very, I say, like, it's like a wrestling where, a small chota boy is going and wrestling with multiple sumo wrestlers. It's like that. He said, okay, I told, let's do it, because otherwise it's very difficult to convince radiologists and doctors to say that it actually works. You have to go with the hardest competition. And when we did this, so this is one of the results which was published in the best oncology journal, Global Oncology Journal, for American Society of Clinical Oncology. We got 100% sensitivity. Ability to detect cancer is 100%. Yes, we may call out a few people as positive when they're not actually positive, means like just high risk. They just have to take care of their health better. That is good as well. So when we do a camp, when we say you require follow-up, it doesn't mean you have cancer. It is just high risk, and you may want to check it up once. Sometimes it could be an active cyst, and sometimes it could be what's called as precancerous fibroadenoma. So we focused on ensuring that we do not miss any cancer, but there could be a few false positives. And with that, even comparing to mammogram, we actually got really better performance even than mammogram. That is, what was 100% with us is actually only 67% with mammography. So with this, now the doctors are like more and more convinced, and they are starting to use this as well. We have actually done several rural camps, in so many states, including Karnataka, Maharashtra. Now we've started in Andhra Pradesh. Now it is officially the screening tool of choice in Punjab as well, Punjab state. In fact, 2 days ago, the health minister of Punjab launched it in Patiala district, and now 8 districts have already used it. This is provided by the government to the end population. That's the first state which adopted fully. We have done it in Karnataka, Gulbarga district as well for 4,000 patients, and several others in Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh we've launched, and many other places. We've also done, like, this Lancet Oncology is a top journal in oncology, and we got that published there also for 14,000 patients, where we found 600 of them to be suspicious of some abnormality. And of course, no marks for guessing. The patient experience is always being like 100% satisfactory, because there's no one who's, you just go into a room, sit there for 10 minutes and come out, and your health will be known. Lots of publications you can look up on niramai.com, that publications, if you are interested in this area, you may get some more ideas for other type of abnormalities. And last bit is about, when you're trying to develop a medical device like this, one is the clinical efficacy, another is the regulatory clearances. It's the hardest part, actually, because you cannot offer a service to anybody else without regulatory clearances. And I'm very, very proud to say that we are probably one of the very few startups, or maybe only one startup in women health for sure, where we have both Europe clearance and US clearance, right? where thank you. So where it's a made in India product going to both US, Europe, and other countries as well. And this is in Philippines also, Kenya, all of these places. It is approved for use. I don't want to stop here, right? There is we have a mobile phone. Like I really want the selfie to happen. Why to go to a hospital? Why can't I do it with the mobile phone? If I can measure my BP at home, why not my breast health? Why should all the devices be only for male? This is such a big problem. We're losing 1 lakh women every year. 1 in 7 women can have breast cancer. We should check it every month. Irrespective of the device, please do self-breast examination every month, once a month, right? On any date, your birth date or any date, and you do it. It's just hand checking. But if you can do it with a mobile phone, that is where we are going, right? So we've started getting this to work already. It actually is working. We also actually put it in a small box like this, and this is something that's we're working with a bunch of gynecologists to actually make it available in every city in India. And also, you would have seen this in Vega City Mall and RMZ Infinity, these kind of small boxes where along with the food code you go and sort of just do a 10-minute sit inside and come out. It's just going to help you a lot. Two things can happen. One, there is an abnormality. It's fine, don't worry, because it is an early stage. Simple outpatient procedure is sufficient. If something is not found, it's excellent. You're happy, go back and be happy for next 2 years and do the test again. Okay, so this is where we are going. It's not just for breast cancer. We are actually trying to expand this to several other type of cancers and abnormalities. Of course, we are open to collaboration, and actually, many Sujata ma'am's students have actually also worked with us before, and I think some more people are interested in doing this year as well. So yeah, I mean, because I feel, you can have just a booth where you go in, whether male or female, stand there for 5 minutes and come out if you know where the problem is, without nobody touching or screening and no x-ray, nothing. It'll be so amazing, right? All you need to know whether it's like a preventive care, because that's where we need to go, right? You've seen how vaccines have helped cut COVID issues and so on. So yeah, lots of awards our way thanks to the ecosystem. We were the winners of the Commonwealth Digital Health Award. In fact, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation grant. Very few startups have actually gotten in India. I have had, thank you, I've had an opportunity to shake hands with Bill Gates, shake hands with Sundar Pichai, shake hands with whoever you like, all those high profile is my, like the fan in me talking about it. We also got award in the Global Women Health. You would have heard about the CES, Consumer Electronics Show held in Las Vegas. So we were called out as the top 4 startups for women health there. National Startup Award in digital health category, and several others that you see here. So I would definitely like to thank my team, which was very, very critical in making this happen. But just that one thing, that if you really want to solve a problem, I was not a doctor, medical doctor, right? I just wanted to solve that problem. And, you just have that goal in mind, and put all your effort towards it. So many people have helped me during this path, right? They're here to help you. People will help you. First of all, especially like ladies, right? You hesitate. Can I do it? Can I take up the challenge? It is challenging, trust me, but it's really very rewarding also, right? And don't worry, if you don't know a little bit, people will help you. You can ask for help, right? So that's what I would say. Like, any of you want to do something on your own, go for it. If your intent is clear, you will get help and you will succeed. Thank you very much, and hope this was helpful. Happy to take any questions, of course. I don't know whether we have time. Yeah.
Ma'am, we were talking about breast cancer. Ma'am, we were talking about breast cancer here. Is there any possibilities to check the higher form of other cancer, which is the IC, it is ovarian cancer?
Yeah. So I was showing in the last slide, right?
Yes,
This can be extended to whole body examination on different types of cancers, cervical, skin cancer. We've already worked on head and neck cancer, which is like throat, thyroid, and other. Yes, cervical as well is possible. But I wouldn't say yes, we have it till we have a clinical study which is blinded and done by third party, and also we have regulatory clearance. But yes, there is a huge scope of this detecting several other type of cancers. Pain management, a lot of people, a lot of us, get a tensor ligament tear, that this, we keep having that, right? And you want to manage, so this will help in even that kind of management of skeletal muscular issues and pain and so on and so forth as well. because it is based on thermal signature. And anytime anything goes wrong, thermal signature is the first thing that will show up. Because let's say you twisted your ankle, you touch it, it will be warm. First reaction the body does is to make more blood flow into that region, and that is what we want to capture. Good question.
Thank you, ma'am.
Any other thoughts?
Ma'am, how did you think of thermal screening? I mean, like what you said, it's so intuitive, but how did you know that it'll work?
Yeah, it's a very nice question. So first thing what I thought was, um, I did see that mammography is not doing what it's supposed to. uh, at least to some people it's not helping as much as supposed to be doing, right? So then I said, what other imaging can be used? And I was working on multispectral imaging, like where you have multiple spectrums coming in. So I caught hold of two people who were going in for surgery next day, and we actually imaged in the whole spectrum, and we found more signals in the IR, in the infrared. Then I started reading up and saying, have people looked at this space? And I was surprised that there are many people who had actually looked at thermal imaging, and it has been left and right bashed by US FDA for not being used. And I said, why? Because different people have done different type of guesswork, saying, oh, this is red, maybe there is cancer, something like that, right? So there is no science behind the analysis. So I said, okay, as a data science person, I said, why not try it? And that's what I did, as like inside the lab for about 10 to 12 months. Then we started seeing, working with the doctors, saying, here is what we are seeing a problem, do you see the same place? And the doctor said, yes, you're right. We went through that for 78 cancer patients. Then I got confidence. Then kind of expanded with the non like normal people like us, and then it went on. We started off with 70% accuracy. Obviously it's not easy. Then we looked at what are the false positives, what false negatives, how to improve it, adding more people into it, and so on. Because unlike, let's say, you want to do an AI on mammography or anything, lots of data sets are available, you can download and start doing it. And similarly, there are thousands of people working on it. Here we had to collect every bit of this 80,000 into 6 images. Every bit of those had to be collected by us. It has been a toiling effort, convincing women to actually come in. Second, convincing doctors to allow us to do it, and they don't do it free, so finding money to do that. So all of that has been an excellent challenging experience. But now I think we are in a good shape with 30 papers on the paper. Like, people say, okay, I'm going to take this into my hospital, right? So now we have 20 Apollo diagnostic centers having it, HCG, Rainbow Clinic, all of them have actually adopted it. Yeah. Thank you for the question.
Hi, mom. You spoke about affordability. Like, as a customer, I do not understand those medical terminologies. So, how affordable is it for me to take up a test?
Everyone above 18 years can take the test, right? All we will need to do is, we actually do it in villages as well, right? So we don't even need to kind of explain to them all the technicalities. That is all inside, right? All we say is it's like a changing room experience. We have a room, the lady sits inside. We have footprints stuck on the ground. So we say, put both legs in front, both legs inside. So it's a rotating stool. We make the, I say, 5-step dance process is how I explain to them. Both feet once, and then 45 degrees, 90 degrees, and back 45 degrees, 90 degrees. And that's it. They come out and the report will be ready. Remaining things happens at the back end. We don't need to actually explain all the things to you, because you're all engineers. I went into all the details of it. I could have gone into more details, but I just thought I'll do a high level thing, right? So that's all we say, sit on the stool and turn around, and we give them the positions, and that's about it. Affordability, sorry, I couldn't hear you with that part. Yeah, affordability part of it, we have, in India we have, you have very type of people, I want to give it free, but I have to pay my salary for the team. So that's where the thing is. So what we do is, we have now released a most affordable version, is when people can give this free of charge with with funding of, let's say, 30,000 per month. They can do free camps for unlimited number of people. These are NGOs who can do it, which is actually free of cost, right? Whereas in a hospital, it is actually, they are charging 1,500 rupees per person. But in groups, there is varied pricing between the two, like 0 to 1,500. Thank you.
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah.
I'm here.
Who's talking? Okay, yes.
Ma'am, my question is related to the security aspects of the AI.
Sure.
Like, with the advancement of these AI technologies, there are a lot of cyber attacks happening, either in the medical devices or in the healthcare organization. So, like, for example, like if there any cyber attack occurs, maybe the cancer was predicted wrong. Maybe the person was not having the cancer, but the AI model predicted that the patient is having a cancer. So, do you think that AI and cybersecurity should go hand in hand to build a trustworthy healthcare systems?
Yeah, it's a good question about cybersecurity attacks. If those of you have not found this, and there are also image-based cyber enhancement thing. So definitely, multiple technology can come together and then sort of make it better and better. In our particular case, what we have done is obviously we are GDPR compliant, so everything that's happening is kind of encrypted mode. So attacking in an encrypted maliciously introducing some noise in an encrypted image is much harder than what a person can think. I'm not saying it's not possible. It is like they may introduce. So, in fact, what we do is that there's a lot of sanity check we do in the beginning, right? So I didn't go into the details. There are a bunch of AI algorithms to check the quality of the images itself, right? So if it is, sometimes non-breast images also can come in, right? And so we need to make sure first is whether it's breast, whether it is imaged properly, are there seemingly noise introduced in this or not. So these are some of like 4 or 5 deep learning based algorithms are sitting in there to do a gate check first, and then if so they will actually inform the technician. And we are also working with one of the startups called AI Shield, which works on cybersecurity, where they're going to do analysis of flooding the system with kind of malicious images like yours, and then seeing whether it will actually that is still work in progress. But it's a good point. That is also, but I think with quality check we are almost an encryption combination, we are so far so good, I would say. And also the APIs are all very encrypted. It's not like available for anybody to use it, so it's a nice handshake between the client and the API on the cloud. Thank you for the question. I think you had a question there.
Ma'am, first of all, I would really like to appreciate for this great innovation.
Thank you.
And one thing I would like to ask that how did you come up with this idea that thermal imaging can be used for this dissection? And what were the parameters other than this that you have used for training the model and other things?
Yeah, I think one of the people here asked. So I started off with this whole spectrum and started reading up about anybody else doing thermal imaging or not, and then that's how we started. In terms of parameters, typically, initially we were only looking at asymmetry between the left and the right side with respect to the temperature values, min, max, and mode, and those kinds of things. Then we now have a new, I mean, like, these are all patterns that we have come up with, so you can't say exactly how did you come up with the idea. Generally what I used to do personally is to look at, oh my god, we missed 10 cases. I mean, it's not like when you're in business, when you're actually doing training and testing, right, in the first 1 year. So you figure out, okay, so you actually start literally staring at the wrong images, or false images, right? Then you try to find a pattern. You can actually run out of all the false negatives, you can do clustering to figure out what's common among the false negatives, what's common among the false positives, and then try to address those features. It's really a combination of engineering and ideation and coming back together to actually improve the algorithm itself. But typically, going back to the origin question, right, when I saw that thermal imaging can be done, I went to Google and said, are there anybody else using thermal imaging in India? To my surprise, I actually found one doctor, Dr. Ram Prakash sir in Indranagar at that time, who was actually saying, first person to bring thermal imaging. I said, oh my God, I never knew that people were actually doing thermal imaging in breast. So I took an appointment and he thought I'd come for a scan. But imagine, in 6 years, he had done 200 patients. No, very, very less, because he was just doing more as a like a passion or just want to try type of thing. He was a radiologist as well. So that's when I started. I discussed with him, and we built an AI model first with his set of 200 people. And then, yeah, it's kind of grown one after the other. It's been a very toiling effort, to say the least. Thank you. Maybe I'm running out of time, or how are we doing? Okay, all the best. And next time you're here, we will actually do a scan for all of you as well. And you just take care of your health. It's very, very important. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Geeta ma'am. It was really inspiring to see your successful startup Niramai grow so much. And it's really nice to see the innovation done in cancer, seeing the growth rates of the number of people suffering from cancer. Thank you so much for making time for us in your busy schedule. So, moving on, we have a short break. It's a tea break from I'm sorry. Before that, I'd also wish that our chairs, Kritika Jalan ma'am and Sujata DN ma'am, gift ma'am a token of gratitude from Women in Engineering. So now we have a short break from 3:30 to 4. At 4, we'll be starting a panel discussion right in this hall, requesting you all to come back in same numbers. The panel discussion is really interesting. So, see you in a short while. Requesting you all to join us for a small group photo session with Geeta ma'am.
In person, but she was very, very particular that I come in person, and thankfully, no, no, actually, that's nice. We were able to come in, and that meeting was till 2 o'clock, and I said, "How am I going to come in?" So nice. Thank you. We can just take it in a phone. Finish it off. Yeah, possible.
Wait, she has a question.
We'll answer one.
You want to photo you?
No, I think photo. Yeah.
Only put on the paper.
Maybe they won't have coffee.
Oh,
Yeah,
can you take a photo even in this too, please?
We'll share with you. We have that group, right? All the pictures are put in. I've been like member for ages now. So I will.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the session. And now we'll be starting back with our panel discussion as said. Before that, we have a small quiz after this panel discussion, which we would all love to see you all participate. So looking forward for all of you to participate in the quiz. So moving on, let's start up with the panel discussion with a small introduction about each of our panelists who've joined us today. So starting with Iram Maimuna. Iram is the founder of eWaste Social. eWaste Social Private Limited is an enterprise that is focused on providing an end-to-end B2B web and app auction platform and a seamless solution for waste or scrap recyclers, refurbishers, producers, generators, OEM, that is, original equipment manufacturers, and logistic partners. IRAM is affiliated with the United Nations Global Compact, a UN subsidiary. She participated in the YSIP program, and our team was awarded the first place. Her team was awarded the first place. She is also a part of the UN Women and Empretech capacity building program for entrepreneurs. A big round of applause for Iram. Moving on, we have Anna George. Anna George is an independent intellectual property consultant with a decade of experience in the field. She specializes in cutting edge technologies in pharma, biotech, chemistry, and medical devices. She has worked with a wide range of clients, including large corporates, Aditya Birla Group of Businesses, startups Dozy in Axel, universities, BITS, and law firms. Anna is registered Indian patent agent and advocate with the Bar Council of India. Her prior experience includes working as a patent consultant at Global Prior Art Boston, USA, a healthcare IP consulting firm providing analytics related patent services, and a stint as visiting faculty at IIPS Mumbai teaching IP analytics. She obtained her LLB from Government Law College Mumbai, an MSc in Cell Biology and Biotechnology from University of the Sciences in Philadelphia, USA, and BSc in Biology from St. Xavier's College, Mumbai. A big round of applause for Anna George. Moving on, we have Priyansha Mishra. Priyansha Mishra is the founder and CEO at On Her Way, a travel tech startup on a mission to make travel safer for 1 billion women. Previously, a product manager and technology strategist at Microsoft, she's passionate about empowerment through technology and intends to do the same with On Her Way. She has an undergraduate degree from Manipal Institute of Technology with a major in electronics and communication engineering and a minor in management, apart from her perhaps master's degree in traveling. An avid traveler, she's always on her way and can be found in different parts of the country throughout the year. A big round of applause for Priyansha Mishra. Moving on, we have Anu Acharya. Anu Acharya is a serial entrepreneur who has been at the forefront of genomics for over 20 years. She's the co-founder and CEO of Map My Genome, a company that pioneered the field of personalized preventive healthcare by making preventive and clinical genomic tools available to the masses. With a vision to touch 100 million lives, Map My Genome was established in 2013, heralding the advent of improved healthcare through genomics based healthcare. A fiercely respected entrepreneur, she also serves as a governing board member and mentor for various high profile institutions such as the NIBMG, NIAB, IIT Hyderabad, IV Cap Ventures, CSIR, and ABLE. She's also a distinguished alumna of IIT Kharagpur. A big round of applause for Anu Acharya. Now, introducing our moderator for today's panel discussion, Kritika Jalan. Kritika Jalan is the founder at SUPL.ai Analytics, a global data consultancy. SUPL.ai helps SaaS-based startups with data-driven decision-making and stay competitive through impactful business insights. Kritika mentors startups and scale-ups through a Europe-based mentoring platform, Growth Mentor. She has also been running a female-focused mentoring platform, Lead It Women, that helps women professionals find mentorship from the ones who have already navigated the trenches. She's currently working on building a framework for Indian companies to make their gender diversity programs more effective. A big round of applause for Kritika Jalan. Panel discussion can now start. Handing over the stage to Kritika Jalan, ma'am. Hello?
Yeah. I'll just probably sit there so that I'm able to see all of you. Thank you. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk with us today. We will start with a small little quiz. If you can scan that. you'll be able to see a question. So the question is that when you hear the word women in business, what comes to your mind? If you'll start writing, it'll appear here. This is also a test. I want to see how easy it is to work with this. Multitasking, passionate, ambitious, balancing, independent, energetic. I think those are enough for us to start. So I like to ask you all, is there any word among this that catches your attention when we are talking about specifically women in business? You can take this.
So I was the one who wrote multitasking. Because I feel like, yeah, when I think of women in business, I know, like, how many tasks they are, like, handling at a given point. Along with multitasking is the, like, the purpose driven, because without purpose, they wouldn't start the business. So those are two words that come to my mind.
Right. Priyansha?
Yeah, I think adding on to that, somebody also said balancing, which is very important, right? So while we are multitasking, we're looking at our lives and work and really managing to balance it all. I think there's a visual that I saw of a working woman where she has multiple hands and she's, trying to balance everything. And that's what struck with me when I saw this. So yeah, that's something that was significant.
So they stole my answers. So I was going to say multitasking, and then I was going to say balancing. But I think so. My story is that I'm going to pick independent because both of those tied in and actually made me choose to be independent in the way I do my business for various reasons, and you'll hear it over time as we talk. So that's the word that I choose.
Nobody wrote difficult. Like, that's good.
I actually thought I'd see few, but I'm
Yeah.
happy to see that it's not
Maybe
on there.
because like majority of us are women here.
Yeah.
Okay, since you have the mic, what inspired you to start your practice on your own?
Okay. So I did my master's in the US, and then in 2000 and I worked there for over 5 years. In 2012, we moved back to India. At that time, I had worked in the US, which was a mature patent market, and I moved back to India, which was more nascent at that time in 2012. And so I was, at an advantage in one sense, right? But at the same time, I was planning to pursue a law degree in the US. So I kind of chose to do that in India. So I in 2013 signed up for a law degree. Signing up is the wrong word, but yeah, enrolled for a law degree. And 2016 is when I graduated. So by 2016, I had two children. Yeah, a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. And I started looking for a full-time job, and law firms. I don't know how many of y'all are familiar with law firms, but they're really brutal for working women full-time, especially if you have a family and children. So one thing I knew about myself was I knew I wanted to spend time with my children. They were too young. So I did my interviews. I had offers, but the moment I brought up flexibility on hours, I would hit a wall. And so at that time, what I mentioned earlier about having built up my experience in the US, I came with a very unique set of skills. So I actually felt that one way, and through a colleague of mine who encouraged me to think about independent practice, right? So she's like, hey, think about that, that is an option that will let you balance both. And by the grace of God, I got my first client in 2018, and since then it's just been growth. And today I'm actually really glad that I pursued that, to choose to do it on my own, because it gives me great independence, but also you learn so much just doing it on your own, and the flexibility that comes with it is yet another aspect to it.
So you mentioned you worked in the US and then
Mhm.
came here, and because it was so demanding and all of that. If I just talk about the US specifically, they have the infrastructure to, support a working woman who has kids, and we are still getting there. Had you stayed back in the US, do you think you would still have probably chosen to do your own practice?
So yes, they are very well set up for working women with regards to daycare. But having said that, it's not easy over there. It's a very stressful life for women, especially in the US. When you start working as a foreigner, your thought process is mostly, once I graduate, who's the employer who's going to, so support my visa, and then how do I get my green card? So these are the two primary thoughts that you have, and I was one of them, and I found both. But so you're not really in that mind space to start your own practice. Plus the US, as I mentioned earlier, was a mature patent market, so you're not coming back. So the advantage that I had when we moved back in 2012, I didn't have that. I wouldn't have had that in the US at that time. So I don't think I would have even considered anything close to starting my own practice in 2012. Maybe another 10 years on, like now, possibly, but definitely not back then. So, yeah.
This just sounds like an opportunity that had come out
Yes,
of a
absolutely.
dire situation.
But it worked out really well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We are all here. Coming to Priyansha, what made you venture into an entrepreneurship?
I think for me, it was pretty clear that I wanted to build something of my own, right? So that clarity I always had. But this particular problem, and just for context, I'm building a travel platform for women and really enabling them to have the same experiences as any other traveler. And that particular problem really stuck with me. I was traveling a lot solo and with groups, and I was seeing the differences in my experience versus the travelers around me, right? How I was, over planning for my safety, how I was not drinking water on my trips because I was scared of not finding washrooms on my trips. So these were things that I felt like only women have to go through, and why, right? So this problem really kept me up all night, and I just couldn't get it out of my head. So it was time to get down and build for that. So that was my story.
This just sounds like very entrepreneurial, right? You look at a problem and you just find, how can I make the best of it? Okay, let's build a business around it. Coming to Anu, I'm so sorry I missed you on the previous question. But what made you start the organization that you've started and been running it for so long?
So I have started and ran two organizations, and I can tell the first one was about 22 years ago. And I think at that time, the Human Genome Project was just getting completed. And even though I didn't come from a molecular biology background, I think it's just sounded very fascinating and something that could be intellectually challenging. So for me, that was an initial start into the world of genomics. And over a period of time, we grew that business into something that was, we had done three acquisitions. We became one of the largest globally in that space. And we felt that there was, a lot of expertise that we had gathered, but there was something that was missing in terms of, what we had in terms of data for the for the Indian population. So the second time around, it was more that I realized that we had the expertise and we needed to make sure that we actually were the ones who were spearheading or creating that space for clinical diagnostics by being able to look at the Indian population and create the data so that you can use it for precision medicine. So for me, it has always been about solving. The first time I think it was more an intellectual problem. The second time it was more to be able to solve a problem that could impact a large number of people.
Thanks so much for that, Anu. Coming to you, Iram, what about you? What's your story?
So I started 3.5 years ago, and while before that I was working, and then I had also worked for two startups. But deep down, I wanted to do something in sustainability and environment industry or the sector. And at that time, I came up with this entire thought process of recycling on your fingertips, like, where you can recycle online. Because I'd faced problems in my previous organizations of how difficult it was for us to recycle. So if we had to find a recycler, then they would come up with a certain price, then we had to again go negotiate with another recycler and all of it. So I thought, like, why not create a platform where we can make the sellers, which are the businesses, and the recyclers meet. uh, and I must say it wasn't easy. First of all, the waste sector is dominated by the men, and most of the recyclers who I started connecting with with that time, like, 3.5 years ago, they said, you're going to shut shop in the next 6 months, and why don't you start something in textile or clothes or fashion? Why are you in this business? Like, you're not going to survive, and you're going to shut shop and go. And I would very proudly say that I have 70% of my team, women team, and they are now like handling the same recyclers who used to tell us that you're going to shut shop and go. So the story is, like, I wanted to do something in the recycling sector, in the environment sector, and I it probably it was the right time, though I wouldn't say it was the best time, because COVID struck us after like 3 months of our operation. And but that gave us time to build our platform, and it also gave us time to connect with the recyclers, because that time they were also going through a very low time. And uh, and that's when we were able to realize that there were so many gaps in the market, and the ecosystem and the industry needed a platform like this. Though I'm like, I can't say we are at the right time, but it's about time that people start seeing, being responsible for their consumption and start recycling.
We had the keynote speaker, Niveda, and she's the founder of TrashCon, and they are like trying to do something in a similar space. Uh, you said something very interesting, that waste is a space where probably you don't see a lot of women, and you were told that shut shop and you'll be gone. What do you think are the other kind of problems or challenges that you face, not because you're an entrepreneur, but because you're a woman entrepreneur, that you've seen yourself and others face?
So yeah, one of the challenges I faced was, like, getting the funding. So we are bootstrapped, and we were able to survive, like, till now. And so every investor asked me, like, who's your co-founder? Does he have more equity than you? And whenever I said no, I have the more equity than him, they would be like, okay, very surprised. Um, so funding was something, like, which is difficult for women to get in. And again, see, the getting the business contact or the sales is not very difficult for women. It's easy. But again, how much they, since waste is a very serious topic, so how much, like, seriously do they take you? So that's another issue, especially the government organizations and the government officers. They think that, okay, like, I'm just a lot of time, I like, and it's over a period of time that I've built that credibility and build the rapport with them. But a lot of time earlier in my career or in the business, I was always asked, like, okay, you can come another time, and just, like, or meet this one, like, this is not relevant for us. A lot of things which I felt that they were like, uh, they never took me seriously. So being a woman, the similar, like, if a man would go, or in the same industry, they would be taken more seriously than women. But I think, somewhere down the line, like, now I have built that credibility. So now when I go to some organizations or some government organization, I am being taken seriously. So I think women also need to build up that credibility, right? So probably, like, even like, if probably, I don't know why the investors also have certain things in their mind. They would have had previous bad experiences, so that's the reason why they have it. So yeah, so I think, if these are the two problems I've faced: investment and being taken seriously.
I think Priyansha has had a better experience in the investment space specifically. But if I talk about investment industry, um, something very similar to what you said is something that Vinita had also said about her business when she was doing sugar. That when her husband would come in, that's when she was taken seriously. But lately, if you would know Mr. Wonderful, he's the shark from US Shark Tank. He has now started telling his team to bias towards women led businesses. Like, I want to only invest in this business because they have proved time and again that if I invest $1 in your business, you usually give me back like 72 cents, while a man gives me back 30 cents. So I think we've kind of proved it, but it's more like we've not gotten the head start. And so more and more of us coming together and showing it is probably, yeah, yeah, yeah. What has your experience been, Priyansha?
I think what I've seen and what I've greatly appreciated are the number of initiatives that have come out focusing on women founders these days, right? And rightly so. It's not like we've solved it through it yet. There's still, I think, a single digit percentage, about a 2 or 3%, if I'm not wrong, of women founded companies that are funded today. So there is a long way to go, which is why these initiatives are coming out. But definitely that's a step in the right direction, I would say. And my experience, like you said, I actually stumbled onto entrepreneurship through a women founders program, right? And I was, to be honest, not very confident at that time if this idea could actually be a business. And I was just, just dabbling around with it. And I went into this women founders program to just learn about entrepreneurship. And that led me to find my first investor and my first backer, and really led me to actually leaving my job and doing this full time, right? So I think that opportunity that was created for me, and a woman focused opportunity, and also a safe space with other women founders, right, that was created, really gave me the confidence to start out on my own. And I see a lot more initiatives like that coming up, for which I'm really grateful. And I hope this really takes that single digit number to a very big double digit very soon.
We're on the trajectory. I will come back to Anu. And since you've been in this space for a while, have you seen like difference from what it was, say, 20 years back? And if you've talk about the investment space itself, like how has your experience been? Was it like tougher initially, and now it's like a piece of cake?
So I think I've gone through two recession cycles and getting into the third, right?
Kudos to you.
Yeah. So I think what there are there are multiple variables that do come into being. I think when we started off in 2001, 2001, at that time, it wasn't, everyone did not want to become an entrepreneur. Like today, every student and everybody wants to become an entrepreneur. It was a slightly different time. So it was, for us at that point of time, it was about building a business, building something, and then we only looked at funding at after 4 or 5 years of getting into the business, right? So that was how we had started, and we built the business up. Clearly, we were always, whether it was in 2000 or whether it was in 2013, I think we always were in the first of its kind business. So I think, I don't know if it was a woman problem, or it was just the fact that we were in a difficult to understand space, that it took a while for people to start understanding and getting the understanding the whole investment part of it. But we did raise capital in Osimo, which was my first company. We did two rounds, one by the World Bank, the second by a private equity firm. And then the second time around, I think, getting the first round was very easy, piece of cake, but second round again, you had to get to a point where you have to start building something, because it's still a new area. So it does take time. And I think if you look at and analyze the data that comes in, you will see that there is a bias, right? And unfortunately, that bias is there worldwide, globally, and through these multiple cycles that we have seen. And not much has changed. A little bit has changed, but not that much, right? But what I think what has changed is in terms of how people invest during recessions, during bull times and all. That changes. So what we saw in early rounds of investments in the early 2000s versus suddenly around maybe the last few years, where suddenly you started seeing a lot of investment into businesses that would never ever make money, right? So we went from looking at quarter on quarter numbers in India to suddenly funding businesses that anybody could look at it and say that will not make money. So I think that's the change we are seeing. But I think what has happened is that as history does, you will start seeing that ultimately they come back into funding something that is real, that's going to generate capital, that's going to generate profits. So I think we have to give it some more time. I think the whole entrepreneurship, the way venture capital works, is still relatively new in India. So we'll have to give it some more time for it to become a lot more stable. But in terms of getting more women getting funded and others, I think there has to be intervention other than the fact that you just see some, programs in the early stages. It has to be a much more sustained and a much smarter way of looking at the problem than saying we have done something and we have checked a tick mark. Right?
Thanks so much for that. So one of the problem is you getting the funding, but what you mentioned, Ram, is very interesting. That 75% of your team is women. I'll tell you something that we faced like last month. We were looking for data analysts, and we put out the job. In 2 days, I had 150 applications, only three of them women. And then I just replicated that and put in the title that women only we need. And in 5 days, I only got like two applications. And so this is a real problem, right? There isn't enough people. And so the very first step that you can do is to bring them in. So how have you managed to do something like this? And have you faced any problems like this as well?
Yeah, so like I face problems with women as well. So like I won't put a rosy picture that it's very easy to work with women. Uh, though I'm very proud of my team, and we support them in whichever way possible. So even how they are flexible, because it's a small team and a lean team, so are we. So I'll give you an example. Like one of my early team members, she like needs a week off. And like she needs a week off for a certain during certain time, and that's her exhibition time, and we want her. But then I also see that she is putting in a lot of hard work and effort during the rest of the year. So I'm okay, so I'll fill in her shoes during that time. uh, there have been instances, so we've I think filtered out, so we've had a lot of people joining in, but few who stuck by us, and who got into the who believed in the organization and its purpose, stayed with us. And to them, it's their company as well. So we believe that it's like not like a single person cannot handle the entire company, so it needs to be team effort. The problem what I faced with women is, again,
Do we have like hiring problem itself, like in the top
yeah,
of the funnel itself?
yeah. So the hiring problem is, again, they a lot of people want to do work from home. They sometimes they commit that they'll be shifting to Bangalore, but they are not able to do because their husbands have they can't shift, or they have families. Another time, they are from Bangalore, but one of the our team member had to shift out of Bangalore because her husband got transferred. So they have to go a lot with the family, where their family is and where their children are. So they have to focus on that. So work from home works for them, but I think there is a downside for work from home, because then they're always distracted. So, and I have seen this, because I have had uh, women in sales team, their cookers going on in the background, they running errand, mopping, sweeping, everything to be done during that time, the work time. So in that scenario, women need to showcase that the seriousness towards their work, like 10 to 6 is my work hour, and men need to respect that too. Like that, okay, 10 to 6 is or the families need to respect. They cannot have, okay, the if my mother-in-law's meal time, or if my children's meal time, it has to be prepared either before or after. So do I, even I have a family, and I also do the same thing, try to manage all of these things beforehand or after work, but not during my work hours. Though, we have some flexibility, but not all the flexibility in the world. So I think that is the biggest challenge, for a woman. I'm not saying that it's wrong taking care of your family, but it's wrong not being able to commit to the work that you have signed up for.
Thanks for that. If we come back to Anna, so you've had the opportunity to work in two quite different countries. And what has your experience been working in both of those countries, as definitely as women, but also working with other men?
My work is, how do I say? I'm a niche professional. So what I sort of, would bring into the scenario, or like the recommendation that I give, is rarely uh, objected to. So for me, in terms of work, I don't have too many challenges, working with male colleagues. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's the shortest,
Yeah. So
brilliant
I was
answer.
thinking, like, should I say that? But that is actually the scenario for
Absolutely,
me.
like whatever is there. Like you should definitely say that. If I come back to Anu, you've I don't know the composition of the organization, but do you have problems in, say, hiring or retaining women in general? And why I ask this is because there are some stats which say in STEM, when women enter, when like everybody enters, there's kind of 50-50 parity, but as they go up in leadership, it just comes down to a few, like single digit percentage. uh, have you seen something like this? Do you face that in your organization? How do you combat with that?
Not really, actually. We've actually had a very healthy composition right from the beginning, and in fact, in the beginning, it was too heavy women, and I actually made interventions to make sure there were men who were also getting into the organization. We've had some women who have stayed with us for 20 years as well, right? I mean, so some of our core team members have stayed with us. They've been in senior leadership positions, and I think we have had a very healthy culture growing up. I think what is important, though, there are certain, like, I think only during the time when during COVID, when we expanded into areas where we had all night like airport operation. Now, even there we had some senior leaders who were women, but I think a large number of people who were doing other operations like blood collection and others, those have not been that heavily women compared to men. But we did have, even there we had. So I think we've tried to be as I think when you are an open organization and you welcome the diversity for the not for a check mark, I think you've managed to get good quality of people. And I think just good quality of people includes a lot of women, and if the culture is good, I think women end up staying there for longer as well. So I think we've not had problems. There have been many women who have gone for breaks for having children, um, and every time, I think one of the things I used to tell, and I continue to tell them, is that take break as long as you want, but I think one is come back to the office for your own sanity, because sometimes you've been changing diapers for so long, you want adult conversations. So I think it has been to it is about creating that environment. And I think right now, I think we see that if as long as you do that, we've not had a problem in retaining good quality, hardworking women in the organization.
Thanks so much for that. You mentioned something about taking breaks, and there's so many organizations who make it easy that when you're having a child or something like that, you go on such a long break and then come back. I was working with an organization last year where the lady herself was the founder, and she had two babies while running this organization, and she's been doing it for like 7 years now. And then you see people like Jacinda Ardern, who's like having a baby in office. Like, wow, you're setting some stage, and they're doing brilliant things for like the nation as well. They've made it easier for women to ask for equal pay. Like, just you walk up to your employer and ask for backdated equal pay. Like, 10 years I have not been paid well, please do it now. Coming to Priyansha, Iram mentioned something about being taken seriously, right? You were a young woman in a travel space, which I would say is a little male heavy. Have you faced that? And if yes, what do you do with it? How do you deal with that?
I think something that I saw across when, and like you also mentioned about working with external partners, right? Whenever I would walk into a space like hospitality and travel industry space, run by a lot of mostly men who have been around for a long time, I was mostly not taken seriously. They thought I was some kid who had just come from college, running some NGO or something, rallying for women's safety. And they would laugh at me and then say, no, everything is very safe for women at our establishment, there's nothing that needs to be done. And for a man to say that it's very safe for women in the first place, I feel is off. But really, it took a long time for me to establish my credibility in these spaces with these partners. And I remember something that even happened, and I joined Microsoft when I was, I think, a teenage, or 19 is when I first stepped into the Microsoft office. And by 21, I was managing some of their biggest partner with billion-dollar businesses, and I was supposed to go tell them what their tech strategy should be. And there were these CEOs who were looking at me and again laughing and not, probably giving time at that time. And I went to my manager, and luckily I was fortunate enough to have my first manager as a woman manager. And I went to her and I was like, I don't think I'm being taken seriously. How do you expect me to execute my work? And she was like, this is something that, you have to learn how to do, because there are two biases that are there. You're a woman and you're a young woman. Today you're a young woman, tomorrow you're still going to be a woman and be facing these kind of biases. So, it's time to buck up and really start building your credibility. And she showed me a path from there. Instead of just cribbing that, I'm not being treated right, she showed me a path from there to actually a space where when I left, the same partners were crying because they were like, oh my God, why are you leaving? Like, we need you, right? So that happened, and that transition happened. And I've seen that even in the travel space that I worked, that credibility had to be built over time, but it was in onus. While it's harder, I think it definitely can be done. And just one thing that I'd like to add, which I saw, which again I appreciated a lot, was that in the startup ecosystem, I was never discounted for being a young founder, right? And I would say, again, taking inspiration from founders like Zepto founders, right? While the first few headlines that made it there were, okay, 19-year-old boy starts, this great startup and, unicorn and everything. But then those headlines about his age really, drifted away. And then it was about their work and all the amazing stuff that they're doing. In fact, our first investor specifically only funds student founders and early graduate founders, right? So they have a whole thesis around how young people can bring great startups. So definitely in that space, there is more recognition and less bias on being young than not. So yeah.
Uh, Thanks so much. Anna, I like to understand from you, giving you some stat. I think that's just my job, just giving stats to everybody. Um, Although there are biases outside against us, there are some biases that we carry when we're born itself. And that's probably societal or whatever you call it. But we would always underestimate ourselves. So if you take any employee appraisals, for example, then women would usually mark themselves below whatever rating they are getting, and men would always mark themselves up. Like their managers would be like, you, I don't think you're so good, and you're like, no, I'm awesome. That's what men think. But we are like, oh really, I'm not that good. We are like that. So how do you combat with a lot of doubt that other people are projecting on you, but some of them that you are carrying yourself all the time as well?
That's a great question. So I think for us, a lot of it is our upbringing, right? Because the narrative that you hear when you grow up is you grow up, you have a family. So there is a little bit of how do I say, like a bias in your own mind, right? And that tends to affect you as you grow. Not affect you, but colors your perception of yourself. So I'm actively trying to change that with my daughter and my son. Uh, but I think over time, right, if you have, at the same time, I want to say that my dad never kind of pushed that. He always said that, women are fully capable of, having their own career and pursuing it, which was at the back of my mind even when I chose to have my children and then pursue it. So it's an active decision, it's an active choice. Also plugging into us into, networks and mentorship programs that kind of help you sustain that. Because like I think somebody mentioned it, when you do have your family and you do have your children, you tend to lose momentum a little bit. And so to keep yourself plugged in and to find yourself a mentor who can assist you through that, also at the same time help you maintain your career, is very critical. So I think networking, and then finding yourself a mentor who can assist you through that, like how, her first manager is really critical. So I think that's quite critical for us to sort of maintain in the way we perceive ourselves. And you're absolutely right about how we underestimate ourselves. One of my primary jobs is to remind my women colleagues or women coworkers, when your assessment comes, do not do anything less than 8. So so uh, I'm not quite sure why we think like this, but it is something that we need to actively break. Because I personally think, like how Iram and Priyansha mentioned, that women actually are fantastic worker bees. We bring great quality to work. In some ways, because we balance so many different things, when we are doing the work that we do, we are actually really focused and productive at that time. So it's a bit of a psychological restructuring, and being intentional about it.
You brought a really good point, and I think same from Priyansha as well. You have somebody to look up to, and who's going to tell you this is not the way to think, you're thinking wrong. I've had somebody like that last year as well, and it just kind of colored my life completely. I'm like, whoa, this is like a peacock, this is nice. And this is something that Veena and yourself were also talking about right before the session, that you do need that mentorship. And it's kind of human nature. It's not like women need mentorship because da, 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 all of that. It's more like when you see other people do it and they look like you think it's possible. Same goes with like world records. Once somebody breaks a record, then everybody else breaks it like right after it within a month. But that has to happen. And I would like to come back to you, Anu. And I think my questions are too much about then versus now. But did you have,
Huh? You're like
sorry?
all the questions that like the older this thing then and now. Go
So
ahead.
it's just easy. I think for me, it's easy in this age where there's so much momentum going around and there are so many programs. And so if I'm getting, shut down by somewhere, there's something on the internet that I see and I feel like, no, I can do it. But probably that kind of access to people and information was not there in that age. And so if you have to give credit to something or somebody else outside of yourself, what would that be? Was it some mentor? Was it like your environment, your parents? What would that be?
So let me, I have to do my plug. I think it's jeans, right? But at the same time, I mean,
Nicely placed.
so I think we are, just wanted to also bring in that there is a certain part that comes from your genetic. There's an influence of genes in your, risk taking abilities and many of the other behavioral aspects to that. So I don't think I had challenges right from when I was a school kid to growing up. In fact, I remember the first time someone gave me a salary that was low, I wrote back a really bad email to them saying, you don't know who you're talking to, and things like that, right? So I don't think I had a problem with dealing with those kind of issues right from the beginning. So maybe in some ways, some characteristics that are not necessarily associated with women. But I wanted to bring up one thing, that one of the things we are doing now is to understand the effect of what you mentioned, that now there are many new interventions that are coming in, to see if that has an influence on entrepreneurship, especially for women. So one of the research studies we are going to be doing now is where we are going to pick 300 women entrepreneurs with some controls, and see if, is it genetics, is it nurture, and to see if, let's say, something like an incubator and all these things have made a real difference. Because what they found in previous studies was that a lot of the men were able to succeed despite not having the right genetic makeup. But for women, it was important because the environment was harsh. So we want to see if 20 years later now, has that been any, has there been a difference in terms of what you just mentioned, which is that there are a lot of resources, there are a lot of people you can reach out to, and therefore we'll be. So that is one part of it. But I think there is sometimes also, when people who started when I started, is that you don't also we also were not exposed to things like women can't do it also, right? So I think the fact that we keep bringing up that, having a woman's, like, too much emphasis on saying women entrepreneurship, I think focuses sometimes on the wrong things. So I never grew up thinking that it's not something we shouldn't do, right? I mean, so I think there are two parts of this whole puzzle, that when you start focusing on something too much, maybe you are also bringing into attention that maybe this is not something you should have done in the first place, right? In our case, that wasn't true. So I did it because I wanted to do it, and I continue to do it, right? So I think there are both two parts of it. And I think that, yes, it has become better in terms of access to resources and all of that, but I think that is true for men and women. And I think we'll have to do something that is going to be where we don't have to have specific discussions on why it is difficult for women. That's when I think we would have done what we've done, what we've set out to do in terms of equality.
I think you've brought up a really good point about, like, I never was told that you can't do something or not, and that has had impact. I think I've had a very similar childhood as well. I grew up with like four other cousins, and we were always treated equally, like one chocolate, char log khayenge types, and everything was like that. But then I grew up, and then it was like, okay, even now you want equality. Now that's not going to happen. I'm sorry. So that definitely makes a lot of difference. Now I'm going to say something very controversial, and the stage is open for all of you, so you can just pitch in. Okay, this is something related to what Iram said earlier, that you have to also figure out, like, they're going to take breaks and this and that. um, if you are a small organization, right, if you are just a two people organization and you're trying to hire, and now you will definitely go into those interviews and try to understand what are your next 5 years. 5 years to bahut zyada ho gaya. Next 3 years or next even 2 years goal. What do you want to do? And you can see right away that this person is going to is planning a kid. What do you do then? Let's keep it kid. That's safer. So in that situation, this is a controversial question because I would probably say I don't want to go with them. But then that becomes like, okay, you're leading this panel and this is something that you're saying. How do you, like, what do you do? In my back of mind, I am convincing myself by saying that I am not a super big organization like Google or Microsoft that can deal with this. I need to grow and probably come to a point where I am able to deal with this. But how do you see me as a person in this situation?
Okay, like I
I knew that. You'll say that.
because like for a small organization it's really not possible to hire someone who's gonna like even like I've had an experience and like being an entrepreneur you grow every day. So I've had an experience where I hired a very young girl and she was very promising, but she was getting married in the next 6 months and she said that no problem, I'm gonna handle very well. So after the next like in the like she joined and 4 months later she was like all like getting ready for the wedding, and that was okay. Like I was expecting like she'll take a month off like before and after, but she never turned up. Like she just like for she took a long sabbatical and she never came back. So my 4 months of teaching her, training her, telling her, paying her. Okay, so that went for a waste, and especially for a small organization, is very taxing. So I think, you should be very clear with your goals, like that what you want. And as you very well said, that the large organizations, be it Infosys, Microsoft, Wipro, they can manage it, they can afford it. But for a small organization, which is bootstrap, even a funded, at a small stage, like at a young, like in a like early stage company, it will be very difficult for them to hire someone who's going to get married or have child or any of those things. It will be difficult. So you should be you can always ask them what are your roles going to be, and are you ready to take the pay cut in case uh, if you get if you have a child or get married.
Thank you. Anybody having any different view about how you would handle this?
So I don't have a small startup, and my answer is slightly different. So in my field, we get paid once you're high enough on an hourly rate. So if so I actually often work with women, especially women who had children or who are strapped on time, right? But I give I we do it on an hourly basis. So you can do 2 to 3 hours a day. That's fine. I'll pay you on an hourly rate. So that gives them the ability to do what they can, and they're, like I said, I find them to be really efficient and great because they have only those 2 hours and they'll. But there is, like as you said earlier, an understanding that you're not going to be doing other things while you're doing this. This is 2 hours of exclusivity just to doing your work. You give me top quality work and we're done. So that's how we function. But of course, my model is different from yours entirely. I've had conversations with startups about this question. It's difficult.
But I think you've raised a really good point. Like even us small companies can do something like this, though it's just a part-time thing, and you only get so many hours to do it.
Yeah, I absolutely think that's possible. And I push for that every time I meet someone who's a founder. Possibly think about it, right? Don't maybe not be too close to it, but many people have different expectations and goals, and to wed the two is a little bit difficult. But I do think it's possible.
Go ahead. No, no, another issue what I think the startup founders face is like, and it's a real time issue that if they'll have to give a maternity leave. So if and that 6 months again go for like an extra expense for them. So that's another issue what they face. But if your goals are well defined, like 2 hours or 3 hours of work, then it's different.
I think just adding on to that, I remember when we started out, somebody told us that your founding team, everybody needs to be a founder, right? And at that early stage, you would expect everybody to have the same level of commitment and, really be into the business and not be distracted by any other major life event. And I remember this is again something that a founder told us that when you're starting up, there's only one additional thing in life that you can give time to. So figure what that is for you, right? You have your startup and maybe you have like your fitness or your time with family, but just that one additional thing, because everything else is going to go for a toss if you're trying to do everything at once, right? So the early stage when everybody is expected to be like a founder, I would expect like a founding team to also have that just one additional thing so that they can be as passionate and they can really run with us, because initially it's not a marathon, actually just sprinting for the first 1 2 years to establish the base, and then you can't really have people lag behind.
Anu, are you going to say something? It felt like you are.
Okay. So, I mean, we've had women take breaks and come back even when we were a small organization and large. And I think it depends on the person, right? If you find somebody who's good, it's not like they're gone forever. They will come back after 6 months. And earlier it
I
used to
have
be.
to ask you, how do you manage that? So suppose we are a three people team and we are getting on to somebody who's going to have a kid next year. How do you like,
So
what
I
do you
think
do?
have a frank conversation and see, because when you are a three-member team, you are looking at somebody who's committed. So you will ask them those questions. And if they're planning to have a baby, I think you factor that in, right? It's just that you're going to see them maybe not after. Some people don't want to take a whole 6 months. They want to take 3 months off, right? Which is fine. But nowadays, I think, in my first startup, it used to be 3 months. Now it's become 6 months. When I took off for two of my kids, I remember taking off for 6 weeks and 2 days. So I think, it all depends. So ultimately, you have to remember that you have to factor that in, and you have to see if that person will add value to you beyond that 6 months of expense that you're seeing right now. And it is a real expense, right? So it's not like you want to get someone started and then they're immediately off from tomorrow. But even when they are pregnant, they are going to be productive for at least 5 6 months. And even men just abscond. So don't just put in a bias just for women. I think there are many men who abscond for no real reason for a 10% raise or a 5% raise. So I think it is important to understand that all of us will take these breaks, and it is a perfectly fine situation as long as they are committed to coming back. And I think some things you can do is to incentivize them in terms of how, when you come back, what do you do with in terms of their raises and other things, right? And I think that will sort of get them back into the process. The other is to get them into, giving them some ESOPs or something if you feel they are going to be part of your core team, and you'll see that they will come back, right? So I think it's about creating a more positive environment. And I think, if you value that person, forget that they are male or female, and there is equal number of people who will abscond and do things that you don't want them to do. So so let's not. That's the way I look at it. And so it depends. If you feel they're going to add value, get them. If you don't think they're going to add value, don't. Male or female.
That's a really good way of looking at things. Thanks so much for that. I think you also gave like some really good action points. Like give them ESOPs, they'll come back. So that's been nice. Talking about being nice, you mentioned about how things were going on in the background and everything is happening during that time. I think there's something around us being nice and thus not being able to set those boundaries, because if the same thing would be happening, all of us did work from home for the last 2 years. The things that would happen around when my brother is working versus when I am working are very different. And that's because he has been able to say, this time my calls are going on, nobody enters the door. I was never able to say that until I realized this needs to be said. How do you make that balance between being nice when it's supposed to be nice and then being able to set those boundaries? Did you have to at all like figure out that okay, now there needs to be a boundary, or was it something that was inherent? I'm sure it was inherent for Anu. I'm sure. You okay? Tell me more about it.
So yeah, so when the COVID struck, I didn't have any maids, no cook. I had children at home, my husband at home, so nobody like to cook, and I had to do the cooking, washing the clothes, everything by myself. And while I was building my company, as and there were a lot of calls, because we were connecting to a lot of organizations like online, and sustainability factor was picking up. I was getting mentored, and so then I realized that I need to. So what I used to do, like I started planning. So an hour of washing clothes in the morning, and it did not come in the first week, but by third or fourth week I started till people started the help started trickling in, because there was the complete lockdown, and we were functioning at that time. And so I started planning, and I started telling my children and people at home that I'll be on call, so do not disturb me. Your lunch would be kept at this hour, so you need to take care of yourself and start helping in the household activities. um Post that, like in the second wave of COVID, I felt that our things were quite settled, and if I had a meeting, I would be there 5 minutes before, and most of the meetings were online. And there were no disturbance from home. But earlier, of course, it took time, okay, mama is in the meeting, and they had not seen work from home. So they had only seen work from office and work from outside the house. So I think, yeah, I had to set, and I had to plan, and I had to fight my way out to say that, okay, this is my time, and I don't need disturbance during this time.
My thoughts. Yeah.
Whoever has anything more to add.
I think I'm just not very nice anyway. So I manage.
I might have a little bit of that too. So in my
I
case,
think that's
because
what it takes. We found a trend.
so
Just don't be nice.
just don't be nice. The no has to be a no. So the first thing is, my children always saw me working from home, taking my calls from home. So the boundaries were set pretty early on. And and from the family front, my spouse and my the rest of my family also, they're fairly independent and great, so they actually enabled the whole process. So for me, working from home even during COVID times was not a it yes, it was very difficult because of the other logistical issues of not having a system, a help and things. But otherwise, in terms of people around you recognizing this is the time that the work is going on, that was sorted. And yes, a no has to be said when the no has to be said, because I completely stand with Iram that we shouldn't, as women, when we say we're working from home, it can't be when we're doing five other things. You slot out that 1 hour, you do great work, do another 1 hour of something else, and then come back to your work. But don't do shoddy work or compromise on the quality.
Thanks so much.
So maybe I'll add one small thing. When I was younger, my dad used to pay me for certain things, right? And I think that was an absolutely
Bribery. We're talking about bribery.
yeah, it was not bribery. It was about how many things you did and at what price. It was a well set this thing. So it is a great way of getting your children to be part of your whole regular household activities, but they get paid for that, and I think in some ways it incentivizes them. The second thing, of course, is that you have to set those boundaries. Otherwise, that will never happen if you don't create your own little wall around that, because your working time has to be sacrosanct. It can't be mixed with other things. And I think that's something that everybody needs to know.
Thanks so much. I think last thing that I'll ask. Yeah.
I don't want to scare the young entrepreneurs over here that don't be so strict to yourself. You can always, like, do a little bit of multitasking wherein, like, you're doing different tasks, but try to be, like, at least 80% serious, like, and stick to your work, and 20% you can still, like, do your own stuff while you're working from home or you are being an entrepreneur.
I think even from office, we are not like 100% serious all the time. We're like, okay, one tab has like Instagram open and stuff like that. Since we have a lot of students here today, I would just finally like all of you to give some advice to them as to, first of all, how at a young age you can build the leadership skills, because most of the time you don't even believe that you can do something around that. And then, especially if you have any inputs around, if you are a woman and you are having those, issues with yourself where you are like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And all that voice is going on all the time. If you have any advice for our audience today.
Okay. I think on the first one, I think what really personally worked for me was really keeping that curiosity on. And something that really helps you build leadership skills along the way is actually bringing that curiosity into action, building something out of it, right? There's so many opportunities, even in college, to build out small things, small projects, communities, clubs. And that's something that actually was my first stint at even understanding what building something feels like, leading a team feels like, right? So when I actually started up and had a team, I kind of had a flavor of what I'd not done well the first time I managed a team in college. So really take all those opportunities in college to build things out and be curious. And I would say to what I used to really fret about at that time was, how's it going to look on my resume, right? And everything is not actually about the resume. Some things are for your experience and what you're going to learn along the way, and keep it learning first and resume next, because I remember chasing a lot of certifications and not enough experiences at that time, and probably wasn't the right thing. So that's one. And I think second thing, on the doubt thing that you talked about, and I still continue to do that. I remember somebody told me this, that whatever you think, like, okay, I did 7 on 10 on this, just take a 30% margin always ahead of that, right? You've done probably a 30-40% better job. And as women, we just tend to discount that, and discount that effort a lot more. So really channel your inner champion and make sure that you tell yourself what you tell a friend, when they're going through a tough time, and don't be so tough on yourself. So
I think plan, do a lot of research. So there's a saying, right? When life gives you lemon, make lemonade out of it. But just see which place you are. Is it cold? Is it hot? Are you going to make ginger shots, lemon ginger shots, or lemonade? So look, do a lot of research, do a lot of planning. I'm not saying wait like till forever to start it, but this planning and research would fast track your growth and get you ahead in whichever industry you are getting in.
My thing is, I'm going to say practice generosity, because you know, genuinely sort of hope and work for the good of your coworkers. And, that involves like networking, knowledge sharing. Don't be kind of like selfish, because when you have group growth, collaboration, cooperative work, you yourself actually benefit from it. Like a lot of what I am where I am today is because of generosity from my colleagues. Like they shared networks, shared contacts, shared knowledge, shared information, which actually helps your growth. And so I'd say do that. And another thing is, I'd say, as a young professional who's just graduated and started a new job, work hard, but when you face a challenge, don't immediately think about quitting and looking for your next manager who's possibly worse, actually, maybe. But hang in there. It took me 2 years to even understand that my first job in Boston. And I'd say 2 to 3 years, and then after that, hey, if you want to, you're still finding it difficult, consider it. But that resilience is built when you just go through that toughness. So
Thanks so much.
I guess you're waiting for me to give advice, but I haven't taken any, so I shouldn't be given giving any advice to people. But I think mainly I think it is that do something that you love because and to create a team that you can work with, and I think the rest will all follow.
Such a short and sweet advice. We'll now open the floor for audience if you have any questions.
Hello, ma'am. As you said that your father always said to you that yeah, you can do it, but somewhere around society also is against regarding it, and although your family is supporting you, is nurturing you, is putting in your mind since birth that yes, you can do it, whether it be a men or women, but sometimes society leaves a spot behind in your mind. So how do you overcome it, and what could you do for that?
so that's where I was going with, surrounding yourself with people who speak those words in your daily life, right? And so you find yourself a mentor group, or you find yourself a group of men or women, right, who help you kind of speak against that. Because you're right, you can grow up in a family where equality has been, it's one chocolate for all four, but over time that messaging changes. So you need to be a little bit intentional about surrounding yourself with the right people who continue to remind you that and do that. So it is an intentional choice that you have to make with surrounding yourself with the right people, is what I'd say.
Anybody else? I'll just make a comment. So, you talked about friends. Anu will not be able to hear. Oh, so you talked about friends and all this. I think in the workplace, maybe women try to be friends with their subordinates or their coworkers, but it's not always compatible to be a friend and a manager. And I think women fall in this trap of being too nice and then because of friend. So I think you have to keep some distance uh, between your professional life and your personal life.
Would you be able to give an instance about like what would that look like, maybe?
So, in fact, a male manager had told me this once. He said, you can't be friends with your people who work for you. It's just not. It gets in the way. But women I've seen in the workplace, they want to be nice, so they want to be friends. They also want to be professional, but I think it's not always compatible.
Thanks so much.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, that's very inspirational. One question I had was, how do you balance? Like, how do you convince yourself at one point you have to do two, three things, and each one of is very important, right? This is also important, and equally being there is also important. How do you say, okay, this is where I have to be, and at this point, this is important?
I think for that, okay, I'll answer that. Like, and then if you want to add anything, I think for that, your purpose is important. Like, why you're starting that particular business. It could be financial independence. It could be your passion. It could be your, like, your skill. So any one reason why you're starting a business, so that will lead you to making that decision that this is important and I need to like concentrate on that. That doesn't mean you neglect the rest of your rest of rest of the things like your family or your health. So you have to balance it, but then like you bracket it, like you have those kitties, you put in 40% work, 20% family, or 30% family, 10% friends, 10% your health, like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think just to add on, there is prioritization that's very important in this space. And personally, for me, my father underwent surgery last year, and at a time when business was very critical, right? But at that time, nothing was more important than me being with my father at that time, right? So nothing else takes priority over that. And that 1 week that I was with him, I was just with him and spending time with that. So I think boundaries and prioritization has been key into that, right? Even I've seen like now that it's in regular life, I probably want to take out time for say fitness, but that 6 to 7 when I'm say going for a run or going to work out, everybody in the team knows that okay, now is not a time to probably call her or get on some work call, right? So there are boundaries set for things that we prioritize outside of work. Obviously, I still personally very strongly feel that when you're starting up, that list of priorities can't be too long, so you can just maybe have like 2 to 3. But when you do have that priorities very clearly demarcated and boundaries set around that, you will be able to balance.
Thank you.
Anu, would you like to add anything?
I was going to say that, I don't believe in balance. As an entrepreneur, sometimes you go left, sometimes you go right, sometimes you fall, sometimes you get up. So you have to do what you have to do. Forget about balancing and all that. You do like, you prioritize at that point of time. You run an algorithm in your mind, you do what is important. And sometimes you might not be doing things that other friends are doing. Some you might not be doing things that others are doing, but that's okay. That's the life you've chosen, right? So I think in the end, I think you have to stop saying that you can do everything. I think do what you like at that moment of time, and I think it's being in the moment, being able to enjoy what you're doing, that you will get past that, right? You won't. I have not felt guilt. I've had two children who are now grown up. Do a lot of things that maybe other people would have a problem with, but I don't, because I've enjoyed that journey, and I think in that journey you can never be fully balanced. So at least that's 22 years of my experience as being an entrepreneur. I never expect to be fully balanced in that way.
I second that. I read somewhere that anything worth doing in life unbalances it. So I guess if your life is unbalanced, that's good, maybe.
Hello, ma'am. And my question was, how do you manage expectations? Like, whenever we see any women leaders, they are always the society expects more from them, that they are extremely correct in the way that they behave, and they're more crucially judged. So, how do you deal with this?
I think set low expectation on day one. You'll be okay.
I think what's important is also how you deal with it yourself, right? From the expectation standpoint. I mean, give yourself that space, and like I think Anukrip correctly talked about not feeling that guilt and not being that hard on yourself all the time. That you're supposed to be prim and proper and perfect all the time, right? Nobody is perfect, and not women should not be expected to be either. So.
Okay, I've had this question for a while, but having like to like as like recently, like there are too many opportunities for women, but do you think that reduces opportunities for men? Because like a little personal experience, my cousin, like he's like average in everything, but if it was a woman, like she'd get opportunities in some places, but as a man and as a society, people expect them to earn, like compulsorily, like even if a woman doesn't earn, he has to earn. So your thoughts on that?
I'm very passionate about this question, so let me take this. I remember when I got into Microsoft from my college, all the men in my college said she only got in because she's a woman. There were 3 people who got in. Out of them, 2 were women, one was a man, and everybody said that those two, the other guy who didn't get selected, he was way smarter than them. but they're women, that's why they got in, right? And Microsoft has quota, diversity quota, and all of this, right? And I just like to, and I remember I asked this on my first day at Microsoft. I asked my CVP this question that I've joined in, and everybody around me seems to be telling me that I'm only here because I'm a woman. And he said, I'm a man, I've been around for 20, 25 years, at leadership, and people have been discounting me for a lot of other things all this time, telling me, you only got here because, XYZ, or you came from here, right? So that discounting is going to happen. And why Microsoft is taking that initiative, or why any other company is taking that initiative to actively hire women, is because of the gap that's been there for decades and generations, right? That we are now filling. It's not like Microsoft hired an incompetent women. I mean, they have a business to run. They can't hire me just because I'm a woman, because I have to work there. I have to contribute to the business. So I think this thought of that an average woman would get higher, but an average man would, I think, is fundamentally wrong, right? Any company, at the end of the day, if it's a profit for business, for profit company, they have to make money, and they have to get their employees to do productive, meaningful work, and they will never hire somebody just because of the gender. So I think as women, we need to stop thinking that we were just hired because we're women, because we're equally competent. It's just that if we've not started out and we've not been given the equal opportunities all our lives, when there is somebody who's trying to equalize that playing ground, we can't feel like, okay, we've been given an advantage. It is not an advantage. It is just, equalizing decades of that gap that has been built up. Sorry, I was very passionate about this.
I think it's just my low self confidence. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Hello, ma'am. Like in some situations, we'll be starting a business with a partner, and if in some situations are like we get clashes with our partner or something, and they are not ready to cooperate with it, like how can we deal in this situation so that our business is saved and like we our work is saved?
Don't start business with your partner, like especially your spouse, because you are bound to have clashes, and then the ego will come. And still men in our society have not come to terms where they can listen, like, or especially our husbands, they wouldn't like they would be biased in our, like, for our opinions or for our business acumen, etc. So if best just to not start with them. But if you have started and you have had differences of opinion, then you can logically, if you can handle it, then it's great. But then you are bound to have clashes. So yeah.
I have had two businesses with my husband. I think the way you deal with it is to choose the right husband.
Any remedies for already chosen one?
Any last questions? I think this was brilliant. Thanks so much, everybody, for taking the time. This was super helpful. And we'll just do the quiz. And if you would like to participate as well. You all can scan this code. Oh, we've already done this, so you know. Yeah. Oh, it's the same code. We want the different one. Yeah.
Kritika, I'm going to log off.
Yeah. Thanks so much for joining. I know 5:15 your time. Cool. Thank you. Can I help somebody? Anybody left? Can we start? I'll just give her my phone. You can actually use just my phone. Okay, so we will start, and it's a timed quiz. There are 5 questions, and you can guess the theme. And then we have some goodies at the end. Cool. Let's go. Can you just move that down? So the question is, women owned and controlled enterprises create direct employment for how many people in India? You have 4 options. Let's move on. Let's move on. Most of you rated 13 million. Let's go on. But the answer is 27 million. Okay, moving on. $11 and 26%. Okay. Move on. It's 26%. This lady changed their name to sustain in the business world. Who's her and what name did she choose? It's Steve. Moving on. What percentage of practicing engineers are women globally? That was sad, no? Very sad.
I think they didn't consider us.
Moving on.
Yes, wow.
Sorry. There are multiple sources, but mostly UN. Yeah. What percentage of women owned businesses are profitable in 2022? You have very less hopes. It's 60% almost. I think that's it. So we have the winners here. Oh my God, all of us just got like 2 correct. Yeah, maybe time. So Deepika and Atul. Is there somebody by that name?
A man getting it in the women.
Oh yeah. where are those books? Yeah,
Those
we'll
books are
just
there.
have, no, no, no. Yeah. Can you please come forward? Ma'am, can you please give this book to the two
It's
women?
just a WIE chair last time. You could not give. I'll take it that way.
Okay, thank you.
Sometimes we give it to them. Give one to Veena also. Yes.
You give. Thanks so much. I will just invite Sujata ma'am to give away the mementos.
I also request Kritika to please join us in gifting the mementos.
Can you give? Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming in. It was fantastic. It's really amazing to have you. Not to miss, Kritika.
Oh,
the
I'll give
moderator.
you and you give me.
No, that's fine. We'll have it later.
Thank
We
you.
all really enjoyed the session. It was so fun.
Thanks so much.
Seriously, we had a really it was like an interaction. She just passed on our questions.
Last time we were not giving to Veena, ma'am. You give it to her.
Okay.
I now request Veena ma'am to please come up on stage to receive her memento too from our end.
Thank you.
Oh, thank
Yeah.
you.
We're making up for that.
Yeah.
All right, good. Thank you.
Thank you.
With interest, right? It's 1 year late.
That's why a different book.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, everybody, for joining us today.
I'd like to place a small vote of thanks to all of us first. So I'd like to thank our keynote speakers today, Niveda RM and Dr. Geeta Manjunath, for inspiring us today for being great women or through their stories, through them being entrepreneurs. I'd like to thank our panelists, Iram Maimuna, Anna George, Priyansha Mishra, and Anu Acharya for spending time with us in the panel discussion and inspiring us to become great entrepreneurs and great women in the society. I'd like to thank our energetic audience for coming up with so many questions to our panelists and to our speakers today and motivating us to be more energetic and active in the session. To be frank, it was one of the most active sessions I've seen in the past 2 days. So, moving on, last but not the least, I'd like to thank our chairs for Women in Engineering, Dr. Sujata ma'am and Kritika Jalan, for making this a successful event. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Come here, we'll take a group.
All of us.
No, you come here. You come this side. You come this side. They pull a chair for you.
I'll pull.
Where is all?
Can move the side.
Nice to work with you.
Yeah.
This one's please.
Yeah.
But then some buy that. I believe in most places.
Thank you so much.
Amol, great job. Thank you so much. Same here. Thank you so much. That's nice. To connect with you. No, I don't think so. Oh, we left. Thank you. It was really great. I'll just still connect with you further. No, actually, I work with the social responsibility. I need your help. Okay, sure. Start it working on it. I will be happy to help. Definitely. Definitely. Oh, nice connecting with you. Yeah, I think.
so much. Enjoyed.